Shohei Ohtani. Like,
that's pretty cool. I'm going to the
wasn't so bad.
I'm going to the game, the O's game Sunday against the Angels.
It's gonna be so good. Him in person is just different.
Ohtani.
It is unbelievable. It's like you're looking at a Greek god or an Asian god, should I say. He's incredible, man. Let me put this quick background. It's trying. Hopefully it goes here now. Be good. Put the stream on here. There we go. Thank you. All right. I'm ready whenever. What's going on, everybody? Happy 4th of July. This is the MLB Deeper Dive, presented by OddsShopper. Hello, look at that. The TV's got you covered. I'm Eric Lindquist. We're going to talk through 8 games here that we have today, 7 on the FanDuel slate, 7 on the DraftKings slate. And the guy, the festive Mr. Adam Scherer over there in his red, white, and blue, also known as just pure black against a white background. How you doing, my dude?
Doing pretty well. Yeah, definitely went all out for 4th of July today, as you can tell. So, yeah, should be a good time.
Are you just dead inside? You couldn't even put on a color for the people? You win $50,000. We can't afford anything other than a black shirt and a free DraftKings hat.
So I'm at my mom's, and all I brought with me is like a black shirt, like 2 black shirts and like a button down. I'm not wearing a button down for the show, so.
Okay. Well, so you're going clubbing tonight after this show is what you're getting at.
No, that was yesterday.
Oh, that was yesterday. Okay. Yeah. Well, regardless, I'll take whatever iteration of Adam Scherer here. Shit my money I get today. The guy's coming off a 50K win on Saturday. Congratulations.
Thanks, man.
W's are good. I would like to partake in that kind of partying here. So let's do it. Anything you want to talk about this slate compared to when you talked about it this morning with Josh?
Not really. The only thing that kind of looks a little bit different between doing the strategy show with Josh and then when I did the tournament plays video was I do think maybe I'm a little bit more interested in like Johnny Cueto in tournaments than I was this morning. But like that also is not any sort of ringing endorsement. It's like that's just the one thing that looked a little bit different. But it's still, it's not like, oh, wow, he actually looks really good. It was like, oh, shit, I might get to him a little bit more than I thought I was going to.
Yeah, that was not on my radar. I'm excited to talk through that one then. That's for sure. We've got a really fun slate for both of these. I think 7 games for both of these slates. It's like the perfect amount. And if we start over here on FanDuel, hit the like button, subscribe button, by the way, too. That goes a long way for us, not Adam and I specifically, but it makes us look cool. And we don't want Josh and Greg to get all the attention here at the end of it by getting those likes up. So let's do that right from the onset here. But we have Carlos Rodon on the FanDuel slate, pulling nearly 25% ownership in this first game. San Francisco at Arizona here. We're looking at a really chalky pitcher right from the get-go, 10-9. This game is only available on FanDuel. Lock is at 6:10 p.m. Eastern time for this, so do not miss it. Make sure you get those lineups in a little bit ahead of time. The DK slate, half an hour later, starting at 6:40. But Carlos Rodon, is he a guy that you would want to get to more or less than 25% of lineups on FanDuel today?
Seems like, 25 is always a decent number when you're talking FanDuel since you can only roster one pitcher, but not a bad matchup against Arizona. Clearly one of the best pitchers on the slate. That's the case whenever he pitches. You do also have Manoah in a good spot. You have Arias in a good spot. Manaya's in a pretty good spot. So there are plenty of good pitching options, but I do think 25% makes sense on Carlos Rodon, just given how good he is. He has the highest strikeout percentage on the slate at 30.3%. He's obviously really, really good.
Yeah, well, hashtag analysis. He's good at pitching, and you should probably have some freaking shares of him because he's really good. You know who's not good at pitching? I think just is absolute trash is Madison Bumgarner. He's in Arizona, revenge spot against his former team. Well, I don't know how it's revenge when you had all of your glory days with that team and then just left for a big contract. But Madison Bumgarner, I can't imagine that I'm going to get to any of him today, even on FanDuel, where this is the only slate you could roster him. Is he somebody on your board at all?
No, it seems pretty tough because like FanDuel, even though it's the same number of games as DraftKings, you're getting a game added that has Carlos Rodon. So you're adding another really good pitcher. You're getting a game removed that doesn't really have pitching that you would consider on FanDuel anyway. So it adds that extra pitcher. And you're only rostering one, it's going to make it really tough, I think, to get to Bumgarner. It's not like it's a good matchup against the Giants. They're tough to strike out. They're a pretty good offensive team. Bumgarner this year has only struck out 17.7% of right-handed hitters. He's facing a lineup that I believe has 7 right-handed hitters. I don't know what a David is that Jonathan VR hitting 7th?
No. It can't be Jonathan VR. It's David VR.
Okay.
Jonathan VR is now with the Angels.
Okay, I couldn't remember where he had signed.
Yeah.
I just knew he left the Cubs, and then I saw the last name, but I didn't know if that was like a typo or not. So anyway, I don't know what hand he hits with, but the point being, this is a predominantly right-handed lineup for the Giants. Bumgarner doesn't strike a lot of guys out, so really, really difficult to get there.
Yeah, I can't imagine that I'm going to get there. And we're having people say, oh, look at the San Francisco lineup. It's trash. Well, so is Madison Bumgarner, so something's got to give. And if you look over here, for FanDuel purposes, at the top stack percentage, the only spot that we're really worried about it over here, Arizona, lots of positive leverage, but I can't imagine I'm going to get there against Carlos Rodon. But the San Francisco side, I still am surprised to see them just at a 2.5% top stack percentage. I think I would get to a little bit at least. I mean, they're the most negatively leveraged team to be getting to, amongst teams that are just like not being owned whatsoever. Lots of negative leverage there. San Francisco, still a team you might find ways to roster even with that negative leverage.
Yeah, I mean, the concern, I don't even think it's that bad of a lineup. The concern is just who starts getting pinch hit for once they get Bumgarner out of the game. You know, you don't have Mike Yastrzemski in the starting lineup. You don't have Jock Peterson in the starting lineup. So both of those guys are going to be available to hit, you would expect. And that can be an issue for a lot of these guys. So there is that risk. That also is baked in the projections, though. So I don't want to go too crazy harping on it. And also, you know, if I guess the ideal scenario, you know, you stack the Giants, they throw 10 runs on the board in the first 2 or 3 innings, they're probably just going to go ahead and give those guys the day off. They're not going to need them to pinch hit if this offense really goes crazy. So there is still upside here, but like you said, the ownership is there. I think it's probably more likely that I would just get to some individual bats like, you know, Slater, Flores, Ruff, than be playing a bunch of full San Francisco stacks.
Yeah, I'm with you. In Arizona, I'm surprised to see as much positive leverage as there is going in against Carlos Rodon. Not a pitcher that I would imagine I would want to go out of my way to pick on. 30% K percentage. You know, it's 277x WOBA, not exactly getting guys on base or doing anything against him to begin with. Arizona, any interest whatsoever?
I can't make any sort of case outside of like, if you're somebody that just routinely stacks against the highest owned pitchers, then obviously go ahead and play Arizona. But that's not a huge part of my strategy. I typically don't just, you know, blindly stack against the best pitchers on the slate. So for me, there's nothing that stands out here. I mean, Arizona's inexpensive, but you're just going up against a really, really good pitcher.
All right. Anything else from this game? The FanDuel exclusive game that we have, San Francisco, Arizona.
Nope.
Cool. We continue on to the DK slate. The things that Mr. Adam Scherer is actually worried about, actually cares about. Actually, you've been playing some FanDuel though recently, haven't you?
Yeah, I didn't play at all in the last like week or so, but I had been playing a little bit more.
Okay.
I can actually deposit a little bit more now too. It's a new month.
Wow. It's a new month. Welcome, July 4th. Just fire it up, fire it all in one day. Who cares?
Actually, I can't remember if they do a calendar month or if it's a 30-day thing. So I don't know. I might be able to get more money on FanDuel though.
All right. Well, let me know because that'll be exciting to know, just to have a FanDuel sweat. Roster Carlos Rodon, and we move on to the DraftKings main slate, starting with Seattle plus 150 at San Diego. 8 total runs that we're looking at here. Oh boy. In terms of pitchers, Chris Flex and Sean Manaea, one going to be a lot more popular than the other. I'll let you guess which. By the way, it's Sean Manaea. But talk to me about him. What's your interest level going up against this Seattle lineup that now won't have Winker? Not that, you know, left on left was going to be all that effective anyway, but how do you feel about Manaea?
I think he looks like a good option. I do think, and I haven't crunched lineups yet, so maybe this is wrong, but my assumption this morning, and I still think it's likely to be the case, is if I were to end up being under the field on one of Urias, Manaea, and Manoah, it's likely that it ends up being Manaea for me, just because he is slightly more expensive than, or sorry, he's not quite as expensive as Manoah, but the matchup against Seattle I don't think is quite as good as the matchup against Oakland. And then Urias is less expensive. So I'm not saying that I'm going to get away from Manaea or that I want to get away from Manaea. I wouldn't be surprised if I do, though, end up under the field on one of those main 3 pitchers if it does just sort of end up being Manaea for those reasons.
I get it. I obviously think it's going to still be a pretty decent spot. Going up against the Seattle lineup on the other side. Anytime I see Justin Upton, I just get excited because isn't that like a guaranteed 3 strikeouts?
Pretty much, yeah.
That's kind of how it works. So Justin Upton in that lineup now, going to be no Jesse Winker. He's starting his suspension. I don't know what happened to the suspension of everybody else, but here we are.
Crawford already served his.
Rodriguez,
I guess, is still appealing or something.
Okay. Well, he's leading off, so there we go. That might be the one bag you can maybe even get to. 5,600 though on DK. Hello, that is a real tag. Chris Flexen on the other side. I can't imagine you're going to have any interest there unless he just like falls into a 150 lineup or something of that nature. San Diego, we obviously know with their lineup getting Machado back, much improved just by his insertion immediately. How are you feeling about Flexen? How do you feel about the San Diego side?
I do not feel good about flexing. I don't really.
There we go.
Yeah, like I think that goes without saying, but
okay,
16% strikeout percentage, 5.02 xFIP.
Is that good?
Flexing.
Seems bad.
Certainly somebody that I'm not gonna be able to get to. I wouldn't think he's not even that inexpensive. He's 82.
I don't know. You've been rostering some real shit pitchers lately. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess it could be one of those where I look at my lineups after lock and I'm like, oh no, I have so much Chris Flexen.
Oh, Chris Bubich, there he is. Glad to have him.
Yeah, that's been a
fun day.
Nightmare all season. But Machado being back, does make this lineup a little bit better. It's still not the best San Diego lineup, but it's certainly nothing that I'm looking to and saying like, oh man, maybe Chris Flexen can rack up some strikeouts here. So I don't really have interest in Flexen. The Padres themselves are somewhat interesting to me. They're not getting a lot of ownership. And so that does make it sort of appealing just because you do have Manny Machado. The price tags on the top of the order have come down a bit as well. Like last week, you had Profar up over 5K, if I remember correctly. Machado was up around 6K. Cronenworth had gotten up to like 5,700. So all of those guys coming down a little bit. And then you combine that with relatively inexpensive bats like Voit or Hosmer or Alfaro. Mazzara is the minimum salary. You can make a pretty high upside stack here against Flexen, I think.
He's so bad. I mean, let me just count the ways. 42.5% hard hit percentage, a 528 expected slugging, only a 16% K percentage. If you're not going to miss bats, if you're going to be throwing softballs to Manny Machado, even Jake Cronenworth, yes, even Luke Voigt there, 501 expected slugging. Why not fire up this stack? I think that it's decent enough. Among some of the popular stacks, obviously, I don't know where you stand on all this stuff. I know you did a show earlier today, though. San Diego, does it feel like a team that's going a little bit overlooked on this slate, considering they're kind of middle of the board in stack score?
Yeah, a little bit, I think, just because, Flexen really doesn't miss bats. He has allowed a 269 expected ISO to righties this year as well, 199 to lefties. He's gotten pretty lucky so far, it seems, in the power department, and he has still allowed 1.19 home runs per 9 innings. So it's not like he's done a great job of avoiding home runs, and he's probably gotten pretty lucky so far. So I do think that there's a lot of upside here combined with the fact that they're not very expensive. Looking even individually at the ownership here, pulling it up now because I was still on the early slate, which is not very helpful at all. But as a team, they're projected for 3 to 4% ownership. Manny Machado individually on DraftKings is the highest owned player at 8%. And it's interesting because 5,100 is such a cheap price tag for him. But you also had Jose Ramirez's salary get slashed to where he's 5K at third base. There's also, a couple of other good third base options. So even though Machado is a lot less expensive than he normally would be, he's still not the guy that you're just going to like plug and play at third base because he's not named Jose Ramirez.
Yeah, I'm with you. I totally get that. Yeah, Jose Ramirez, kind of a clear-cut one-off for me almost every slate. But looking at the Seattle side, anything to extract whatsoever?
Not really. I mean, Julio Rodriguez, I think you mentioned it. He's really, really, really good. I saw the stat, I think it was yesterday, that he's like, and it's one of those, obscure kind of made up things where it just fits what they want to say. But like through his first 79 games or whatever, Barry Bonds is the only other player to have like as many or more home runs, doubles, and stolen bases as Rodriguez has. So the point being, he's really good really quickly. But he's also not priced down here. So 5,600, you're paying full freight there. Suarez is 4,700. I think it's a pretty tough team to get to overall.
Yeah, I'm with you. Julio Rodriguez, if he falls in lineups for, one offer, if you have something super chalky and you, for whatever reason, have the spend up option, why not him? But can't really see anybody being a priority other than him, or not even a priority, just an option going up against one. Sean Manaea, anything else from this game for you?
No, I don't think so.
All right, cool. We've got such a cool offer going right now here. Obviously, we're working in conjunction with Odd Shopper here today, but for a special live before lock offer, this is, obviously the deeper dive, but we lead into live before lock. We have a Bet MGM promo going right now. You bet $10 on any MLB money line tonight, and you're going to get $200 free. Yes, $200 free just by betting $10 today on any money line. Check out the video description below. That's going to be where you find the link to be able to go do that. I know people have DraftKings, FanDuel Sportsbook. You've had all these other options, but I'm telling you, BetMGM giving you $190 more just for checking out their product, just for having another sportsbook to be able to shop your lines over at. You have phenomenal options over at BetMGM. So use that to your advantage. Take advantage of all these sportsbook promos when they pop up. So cool that BetMGM is still continuing to run this. So bet $10 on any MLB money line tonight and get $200 for free. That's great stuff. Check it out. All right, we move along to Cleveland plus 120 at Detroit 8.5. Total runs that we're looking at here. Connor Pilkington on one side of the mound. Alex Fado, hell no. We're not rostering pitchers here, correct?
I have some interest in Pilkington on DraftKings.
Of course you do.
Yeah, he's the Chris Bubich guy today, I think.
That's exciting. I'm excited for it.
He's only 6K. He does have decent strikeout stuff with a 22% strikeout percentage this year. He's facing the Tigers, who suck. The lineup for Detroit, it's bad, but for game 2 of a doubleheader, I thought maybe we'd get an even worse one.
Isn't it bad every day?
Yeah. I kind of thought for game 2 of a doubleheader, we'd see like an even worse one potentially, but it's pretty normal, but that's still far from good. So I just think it's a situation where Pilkington is a little bit underpriced. We have him getting 15% ownership on DraftKings. That makes sense to me. Like when you look at the other cheap options, it's just a lot easier for me to make a case for Pilkington at 6K than it is for, say, Bundy at 6,200 against the White Sox, or Freeland against the Dodgers, or even Faedo on the other side of this game. Like, none of those guys have good strikeout stuff. They all have objectively much, much worse matchups. So Pilkington, I think, does make some sense.
All right. God, what a world. What a world. I mean, he's got the top value percentage of anybody for DK purposes and the top pitchers tool as well. I get it. There's a little negative leverage there. He's up to 18.2%. I think he's like trending up even, starting to look like one of the guys that people are really going to for some salary savings. So be on the lookout. If that gets north, well, now it's down to 13.7. You're right. It went down as I just refreshed. That's something I should do more often. Way to go. Way to run a show, Eric. Great stuff. But Alex Fado sucks. He is not good. I know he might be a nice person, but the baseball thing isn't so good. 527 expected slugging, nearly a 40% hard hit. And by the way, the Cleveland Guardians do not miss the baseball. Pretty much nobody in this lineup outside of Franmil Reyes, who actually crushes baseball, is going to be somebody who strikes out here a bunch. What's your Guardians' interest on that side?
I'm pretty interested there. I guess I should refresh now.
Me too. I was going to say they're second most popular team, 9.4 stack score. We're looking at in the top stacks tool. I think they're a team you're just going to get to.
I'm on FanDuel, which explains why they're not there.
Okay. The site you don't play, that's perfect.
Right, yeah. I thought I was on DraftKings. I was like, okay, we still don't have them. But yeah, they're getting ownership here. It makes sense because, I kind of alluded to it when we talked about San Diego with Machado. Ramirez is projected for 25% ownership because he's just wildly underpriced in a good spot. He's going to be the guy that you just click on at third base. I'm pretty confident he's the cash game third baseman. So you're going to see that high ownership there. It makes sense. But, individually, obviously, if you're getting a 3-to-1 discount on, say, Manny Machado, that's a good pivot. But you have him pulling the ownership up. But then you do also still have 10 to 15% going to all of Reyes, Kwan, Jimenez, and Rosario. So it's kind of difficult to get low-owned players from Cleveland. So I do like the spot, but it's certainly a team where you're going to want to be very cognizant of what you're doing with the rest of your lineup so you don't just end up with wildly popular players all across it.
Yeah, you could end up with infinity of these guys.
The issue, too, is like the best pitchers on this slate are getting so much ownership. And then Cleveland's getting ownership. And you just kind of start to think about like, okay, how exactly do I build this lineup where I'm not just running 15+% players all across the board? But if you can find a way to do that, I do really like this spot for Cleveland.
I'm with you. I think they're a team that's just going to fit in easily into lineups. Detroit on the other side against Pilkington. Now, I don't think that they're good. Obviously, they're one of the worst offenses in baseball, if not the worst. But 8.6% ownership share. It's a lot lower than the likes of chalkier Minnesota, chalkier Cleveland on the other side of this game. Are you going to get to any Detroit bats against your boy, apparently, Connor Pilkington?
They're really, really cheap outside of Javi Baez, so they have that working for them. And then also with Pilkington, even though he does have decent strikeout stuff against righties this year, he has struck out 23.5% of hitters. He's also allowed a 222 expected ISO compared to only a 107 actual ISO. It's likely you see power numbers start to really show up against him going forward. Now, I don't really know what you can do with the Detroit lineup to take advantage of that, but you do have Baez at 5,700. You have Eric Haas hitting fifth as a 4K catcher. You have minimum salary Spencer Torkelson that, at least in theory, is capable of hitting baseballs far. So I get it there. You're going to be able to build really high upside lineups where, well, outside of the Tigers part of it, where it's just like if you somehow miraculously get the Tigers hitting, the rest of your lineup should be really good because you're going to be able to afford whatever pitching you want, whatever one-offs you want. But yeah, I think looking to the right-handed bats, Baez, Haas, Torkelson in particular. Grossman is cheap though. Riley Green, lefty, but leading off at 2,500. They're really cheap, and there are at least some prospects in this lineup in Green and Torkelson. We know Haas has power. We know Baez has some power. Are you muted? You're muted. Or I just can't hear you.
Son of a biscuit. Why would that happen to me? It's fine. It's fine. I was saying EMAC, hi. I was responding to him. That's one thing that was happening at the same time that you were done talking, because sometimes you just get done talking and I can't really gauge it. It's all right. It's my fault. It's a me problem, not a you problem. But secondly, he's saying he's just here for the E94 sports wager takes. I'm going to start doing an MLB rundown the night before, covering sports betting of every single MLB game. Yes, it's an idea as crazy as what it sounds, but it's going to be fantastic. I'm looking forward to it. Lindy's. It's going to be some Lindy hot takes, that's for sure, every single day. So if you guys want to get a jump start on your process, if you're into sports betting, like we are over here at at Stokastic, there we go. First time I knew I was going to do that at some point, but definitely want to be helping you guys make some money looking at the sports betting lines the night before. So check that out starting up tomorrow. Very excited about the future of that. But we move ourselves on. Anything else from this game for you?
Nope. I had already forgotten what game we were talking about, but no.
No, we were talking about a Cleveland and Detroit game, that poo-poo platter. Let's go to something more palatable for me, at least. New York Mets minus 155 at Cincinnati, 9.5 in Great American Small Park. We're looking at Taiwan Walker. We're looking at Hunter Green. Oh boy, do I have Hunter Green interest at this level of ownership, because nobody is clicking on him. And I like guys who throw at 102 miles an hour. That's something I personally enjoy. Terrible ballpark, awful matchup, but I digress. Hunter Green, my favorite tournament pitcher of the day. Am I a crazy person, Adam?
No. I mean, you understand that it's unlikely to work out. It's a tough matchup. Hunter Green has really, really struggled with power numbers this year. He also walks way too many guys, 10% walk percentage for him. But he has that 29% strikeout percentage, which on DraftKings is the highest strikeout percentage on the slate. On FanDuel, it's second highest behind Carlos Rodon. So the upside is certainly there, and he's not getting any ownership. I really think both sides of this kind of look like appealing spots to get to in tournaments, because even though the Mets are pulling ownership, we still have them with an 18% chance of being the top stack, 16% aggregate ownership going against Green. Even on FanDuel, they show up as very good values as well. But then with Green, we have him with a 12.5% chance of being a top two pitcher on DraftKings, only 3% ownership. When you look at how concentrated pitcher ownership is today between Urias, Manoah, Minaya, and Wright, yeah, all of those guys are good, but Hunter Green's got the highest strikeout percentage of the group. Yes, the matchup sucks, but for one, Kyle Wright's matchup is also brutal. So at the very least, even if you want to just like say Manoah, Minaya, Urias are kind of just the top tier, at the very least, looking at 28% ownership going to Kyle Wright against St. Louis and comparing that to 3% for Hunter Green, $600 less going against the Mets, at the very least, those two numbers should be closer, I think.
Let's see. Taiwan Walker, not very good. 17.7% K percentage, a 267 expected batting average. He's still had 4 straight quality starts. He's starting to show some strikeout upside from time to time, but God, is it not consistent? And God, do I not really know what to do with him going up against Cincinnati. He's 8,800. He's priced atrociously for this kind of a slate for guys that I would want to take shots on. And he's got around 5% ownership. Is he still a guy that you're going to land on in lineups for DK purposes?
It's kind of the same play to me as Hunter Green, just for different reasons. With Hunter Green, you're playing him because he's a really good prospect that throws really hard and has really good strikeout stuff. With Taiwan Walker, you're playing him just because like he's got to be one of the most volatile pitchers in the league, just in terms of like absolutely no idea what you're getting from him start to start. He can go out there and just light it up and be great, or he can go out there and just get knocked out in the first inning and nothing really surprises you. And on top of that, he does have a favorable matchup against the Reds. That said, still a tough park to pitch in. Looks like it's about 90 degrees in Cincinnati, which is another reason you have a 10 over under here. So very, very risky spot for both guys, but you're getting 3%, 4 or 5% projected ownership going to Taiwan Walker. It's just another situation where even if you just compare him to Kyle Wright, nobody would ever actually lay 5 to 6 to 1 on Kyle Wright over Tywin Walker here.
Yeah, nobody would. But Dom Smith, Mark Canha, really the only not popular New York Mets bats here on the other side. We talked about them a little bit, talked about the surface of them a little bit here going up against my boy Hunter Green. Cincinnati on the other side, obviously is going to be a team that, you know, you're talking about the game environment. Taiwan Walker could be volatile. If you had to pick one of these two teams to stack up, if you're making 1 or 3 lineups today, which one do you prefer?
I would lean toward the Mets. I know they're getting more ownership, but there's just so many more appealing hitters in this lineup, and they are modestly, like nobody on this team on DraftKings is above 20%. Lindor leads the way at 18%. Dominic Smith at 3K is the lowest at 7%. So they're popular, but it's not like you're talking about 25 to 30% owned guys. It's a good park. It's a very high upside matchup for them. So if I'm going to one team here, I think it would be the Mets.
Yeah, I'm going to play Hunter Green. I'm going to play some Mets. There's no way around it. I get why they're the most popular team on DK. I get it. Totally do. 14.6 stack score, markedly better than the next best in the White Sox. So I love Hunter Green because of the upside. I absolutely will just play him. You could play 10, 15% and be over the field on Hunter Green today. That's an easy feeling for me to know that I could do something like that, even though I know with my process, I'm going to end up with way too much and way more than that. But whatever. New York Mets, I will definitely have on the other side here too. But from Cincinnati, are there some bats that you can extract for some value?
So when you look at what Walker has done this year, he has, and this isn't surprising, been more power prone to lefties, at least in terms of expected numbers. 192 expected ISO, 118 actual ISO against lefties, 0.059 ISO to righties, 148 expected ISO. So the first thing you're going to look for is left-handed power, ideally. There's not much of it in this lineup. There's only 2 left-handed bats. Votto's hitting 4th at 3,800. Mike Moustakas hitting 5th at 3,100. So you do get some value there. Brandon Drury's been great this year, but he's also priced up. Jonathan India looks like a pretty solid second base option at 4,100. I think he's probably on the short list of cash guys at that price, just because he's leading off in a good hitting environment. So I think it's a little more difficult to individually single out Cincinnati bats than Mets bats, and that goes hand in hand with their offense not being nearly as good. But the pricing on Votto and Moustakas is pretty appealing. The price on Jonathan India looks good as well.
We got Emax saying, 20% or 20 home runs for Hunter Green this season. Yeah, the Mets are definitely going to be a team you can still get to. But one time, Hunter Green, do it for me, my friend. Do it for me. Anything else from this game for you?
Nope.
Cool. We continue to Odd Shopper. Hello, Odd Shopper. We have some really cool stuff going on over there every single day. It seems like every day that I log into our work Slack, there's some new feature. There's something else that we've added to make Odd Shopper even better than what it was before. And for me right now, that's the Parlay Builder. I think if you go to Odd Shopper and you go to Parlay Builder, I know a lot of you guys out there love your 10X parlays, your props, everything like that. Well, we have them characterized by our 10X parlay of the day, where you can literally get all of the plays that are sticking out on Odd Shopper and put them all together going for a 10X play. I'm telling you right now, if you also run it with the Sharp Sportsbooks lines as a projection system, there's a number of different Sharp Sportsbooks where they're able to aggregate everything together for you and come up with some really great parlays. It's just another part of my process now where, obviously I live in California. Whenever I go to Arizona to go visit my folks, now that they, spend half the year out there, they're not there right now, but I would absolutely be firing up at MGM. I would absolutely take advantage of that $10 to win $200 wager that's right there on the claim page next to the Parlay Builder. And I would absolutely be firing up some of these parlays. I'm looking at Madison Bumgarner, the under of 4.5 strikeouts for him, a pitcher I'm always looking to short. Glad that Odd Shopper is step for step along with that. We've got the over of Julio Urias. We're looking at a plus 125 at a number of spots just on the main page for MLB bets. Lots of different bets every single day for you guys to pick and choose through. We put the best ones together in terms of expected ROI, expected win percentage, every single day directly on the screen for you. It doesn't get any easier than that. In 30 seconds or less, you can have positive EV bets for the day completely free just by signing up, logging in with an email address, and having those props available for you. Adam, anything that sticks out to you over on Odd Shopper today? Is there a player that you might be looking to short, or somebody that you're really bullish on?
No.
Cool. Kyle Wright over 4.5. That's what you were going to say. Minus 173. We've got him projected north of 6.5 strikeouts today. That's a 77% expected win percentage. I believe that's what you were going to say. I'm just making you say it. Kyle Wright. That looks good, right?
Yeah, that works. Cool. I just got it pulled up now. We'll go with that one.
That's all right. Yeah, we'll do that. Adam, really good at his job. Doesn't even care. It's fine. He goes to Odd Shopper, though. He's able to log in instantly, too, and almost get caught up in time to be able to come out with a play. But yes, Kyle Wright is his play, my play as well. Fire the overs of those and check out Odd Shopper to help you with sports betting day in, day out. Thank you to all the guys here at Stokastic for doing an amazing job behind the scenes, putting those projections together daily for free.
Hey, my boy Johnny Cueto, we have as one of the better ROIs.
Well, that's fucking broken. Let's go to St. Louis, plus 145 at Atlanta, 9.5 total runs that we're looking at there. In this one, Dakota Hudson and the aforementioned Kyle Wright. He's very good at pitching baseballs. I like him as a human being. I like him as a pitcher. I don't like the matchup against St. Louis whatsoever, because I just really think this team, with the addition of Brandon Donovan, with the addition of Nolan Gorman, a lot of lefties that can actually do some damage now against righties going forward. But this is not your everyday, average, ordinary righty. How are you feeling about Kyle Wright at his current ownership today?
Not great. Like, I understand why he's getting it. He's having a good season. He has struck out 25.7% of hitters, 3.34 xFIP, 0.6 home runs per 9. All of that looks good. If you look at his splits, 26% strikeout percentage against lefties, 25.5 against righties, 125 expected ISO to righties, 163 to lefties. Not like he's been bad in any area at all. I am just a little concerned because he is getting 28% ownership right now. I've already mentioned that even though I think, he's clearly so far having a better season than Hunter Green overall, I think the ownership gap there is too wide. I think the ownership gap between him and Walker is too wide. The other minor concern I have, and I don't want to read too much into it, but Kyle Wright has seen a drop-off in his strikeout numbers recently. Over the last 30 days, he's made 5 starts, has about a 22% strikeout percentage. The thing that alarms me the most is that you're talking about, in those 5 starts, a start against Oakland, a start against Pittsburgh, a start against the Cubs, the Giants and Phillies, the other 2 teams. But these are spots where he shouldn't really be having trouble getting strikeouts. Granted, I guess he did actually get strikeouts in those starts. It's really just that he struck out 16% against the Giants and 15% against the Phillies. But the, I guess, bigger concern is just that, like, Zips projects about a 22 and change percent strikeout percentage rest of season for him. And Wright's dominance at the start of this season was pretty surprising. Not that he's expected to be a bad pitcher, but it seemed like he was, really outperforming what was expected of him. So I am a little concerned that just, as the season goes on, you do see those strikeout numbers just kind of come back to earth from where he had been earlier in the season.
That's some good analysis. I don't feel great about where his ownership is either 28%. I strongly prefer Manoah over just about everybody on the board today. Sean Manaea now up at 47%. I mean, maybe we can find some ways to short that. I'll probably be chiseling away a little bit from that. I get that Urias is up there at 46.3%, but I think he should be when he's 8,300 in this matchup against Colorado. But Kyle Wright, there is some upside there. I'm with you, though, where I think it's just a really tough spot. So St. Louis, I want to get to a lot more stacks than what I had in my first run as it stands right now. We have a 6.4% top stack percentage for DraftKings purposes on them. Dead middle of the road here on this slate. Positive leverage to be had. And it's just an offense with Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado that you just got to believe in that can get to any pitcher who has a pulse. And Kyle Wright has that. So how are you feeling about the Cardinals? Are you getting to any of those bats?
So I certainly wouldn't fault anybody if they're not stacking the Cardinals, because Kyle Wright is very good. But if I were to go up against one of these popular pitchers, I think the Cardinals are where I go first. Before I go to the Rockies or the A's or the Mariners. Kyle Wright is good, but you just have such good hitters in this Cardinals lineup, and they're not getting any ownership. You do get the added benefit of, if they do come through against Wright, a quarter of the field just lost one of their pitchers basically. The lineup looks solid. The pricing at the top is pretty expensive, but Tommy Edman is sub 5K now, so that's nice. And then once you get down to the 5 spot, Gorman at 3,900, Yepez sub 4K, Carlson at 3,500, you can sort of mitigate the salaries that you're spending on those guys at the top. So I'm not saying I'm going to get to a lot of the Cardinals, but I do think that they're a little bit under-owned here, just given that they have the second best WRC plus in baseball. And they're clearly the best offense out of the offenses that are facing popular pitchers today.
Well, landed the free in the home of the Braves. They're going to be a team that I definitely get to a lot more than the field as it stands right now. No ownership going up against Dakota Hudson for what reason? Dude's got a 13.3% K percentage, walking nearly 11% of batters, a 43.8% hard hit percentage in a decent ballpark with a massive lineup that we've got in play here. Phil Gosselin, anytime he joins the fray, that's not so good. But everybody else, Eddie Rosario, welcome back, young man. I just think I'm going to get to a lot of Atlanta. Their current ownerships are you.
So the only concern I have here outside of, it's just baseball and offenses suck all the time. The only concern I have here is this another one of those games where the Braves are projected for 4% ownership? Everybody looks, can see a tool like the Top Stacks tool for 5 seconds and decide, oh, the Braves are the best stack today. And then you get, what we had the other day where the Braves got the same ownership as the Dodgers in Coors Field. We saw that happening last year, especially towards the end of the season. You're at the point in the season now where a lot of the worst MLB DFS players aren't playing anymore. They've lost their MLB money. And so you have, people with a similar process where the way the numbers look right now, the Braves are just going to get pushed up for everybody that has a good process, basically. Yep. So that is my one concern here is this just another spot where because I understand why the ownership projections are as low as they are. When you look at the individual players on Atlanta, it's really tough to point to them. It's not hard to say, oh, I like Ronald Acuna or I like Matt Olson. It's tough to point to them though and say oh, they're the top option or a top 2 option or whatever at their position. For example, Austin Riley, really like him, 5,200. He's not Manny Machado. He's not Jose Ramirez. You have Ronald Acuna. He's great. He's 6K. Mookie Betts is a $4,300 outfielder, for example. Dansby Swanson's up to 6K. Matt Olson, you have Jose Abreu facing Dylan Bundy, right off the top of my head. You have Kirilloff facing Johnny Cueto at first base. So I understand why the ownership's so low. It's just that I'm a little concerned it's going to get pushed up because, again, anybody with a good process is going to take these numbers and decide they're playing the Braves.
Well, there's that. They were my most popular stack that I got to earlier, just based on where we were coming in with them. That was so nice of you to compliment me. I have a good process, right? That's not what you said. That's what I'm extrapolating.
People with a good process and people that also have a fake good process that just,
What a dick. I knew you were going to do it. I knew you were going to just be in. Is that Greg over there? What's going on? I'm getting made fun of again. Oh, I get made fun of every day. Just, wake up in the morning, existing in the world. My wife, my dog, they all look at me differently. It's fine. We go to guys like Michael Harris in order to cut some ownership, though. I mean, that's the nice thing. 9-hole. Dude's got a 371 WOBA, 213 ISO. What are we talking about here? I mean, this guy's a 9-hole hitter on the Braves. I was saying it yesterday. How nice is it to be the Atlanta Braves right now?
Yeah, I mean, he's a top 100 prospect and he's their 9-hitter.
It's just so dumb. It's an embarrassment of riches. And you get Rosario back. So that's going to be just another deal for them to have in the rotation and in this never-ending cycle of just good players that they have available to them. They've got 2 of the best hitting catchers. They've got the best defense, I think, in the league. It's just incredible what Atlanta's done, even absent Freddie Freeman this season. But anything else that you really want to cover in this game whatsoever?
So the one, I guess, last thing on my concerns with Atlanta, I'm probably going to do absolutely nothing about it. So I'm probably going to just play a bunch of Atlanta and then complain about it when everybody else does the same thing. But I did just think it was worth pointing out that this just strikes me as a prime spot where you see them get more ownership than's being projected.
All right. Well, that's unfortunate because I'm going to have lots of them. Hit the like button, everybody. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell so you can be aware of everything we're doing here over at Stokastic at our YouTube channel here and otherwise. But definitely hit that like button before Josh can scoop them all because he's so good at it. Like, pat him on the back for it, but also give him to me. The money is mine, the money. Something like that. That's Vegas Vacation, in case you didn't know. I'm not a crazy person just speaking.
I had no idea. I mean, I figured it was from a movie. I didn't think you would just like
the money is mine, the money.
Started saying that, but yeah, I didn't know what it was from.
I have movie Tourette's or something. What time are we going? We got 20 minutes left. 20 minutes left. 3 games. Let's get to my Minnesota Twins here, playing the White Sox. 9 total runs in this one, and this is going to be an interesting offensive spot. And well, I said that, and now I know that you have Johnny Cueto on the mound here for the White Sox. So I'm just going to give the floor to you. Why do you like Johnny Cueto so much today?
I don't like Johnny Cueto.
Yeah, me either. That's why I just prefacing the question.
Yeah, I mean he's 5% owned. We have him with the highest top 2 pitcher percentage out of like behind those main 4 guys, Urias, Manoah, Manaea, and Wright. So you're getting 5% ownership there. He's in a price tier basically by himself. The only other pitcher priced around him on DraftKings is Cole Irvin against Toronto. Between those two, I'm certainly going to take my chances on Cueto. He's been decent this year, 20.5% strikeout percentage, 3.97 xFIP. I don't think he's a great pitcher by any stretch, and I do think that Minnesota's offense is solid, and clearly if I have to just choose a side, between does Cueto pitch well or does Minnesota do well, I would lean toward Minnesota doing well. But at the reduced price tag, at the lack of ownership, given that there's just really no good second-tier pitchers today, you have 4 dudes at the top that are good. You have Connor Pilkington that is cheap, and everybody else is just either in a bad matchup or bad, or in most cases both. So why not Cueto is kind of just the way that I'm looking at it.
Why not Cueto? Because I just don't want to. He feels, I prefer not to roster old, decrepit pitchers.
Yeah, I mean, but like on this slate, what's the alternative?
I know.
Like it's young pitchers.
Cole Irvin is the alternative. Cole Irvin.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm going to roster Cole Irvin because I'm stupid.
Are you?
Yeah, I actually am.
I'm referring to the Irvin part. I don't need any clarification on the latter.
AOD says, Eric, you are crazy, but we love you, bro. You're so very welcome. I also love Mike Lawrence behind the paywall. Oh, behind the virtual glass today. Always wanted to give him a shout out. He's now Yo-castic, so that's lovely. The former awesome Yo, because his buddies called him that. Whatever it is, we're just happy to have him. The guy's always smiling, pretending to be a Philadelphia fan. He's one of those fake Philly fans. So there's that. Yep. Yeah, there it is. I knew you had a Philly hat on. You didn't have to prove it. It was that color. But anyway, let's talk some offense here because we don't want to be rostering Dylan Bundy, right?
No, that's a pretty tough sell for me. I mean, he's cheap, but like this isn't even the same Dylan Bundy that you used to get where he would give up 1 million home runs, but he'd also strike right-handed hitters out at like a 28% clip. 20% strikeout percentage against righties this year, 12.5% against lefties, 187 expected ISO to lefties, 189 to righties, going up against a White Sox team that has a lot of power in it. I have a really tough time wanting to get the Bundy.
Also, don't forget FanDuel locks in 43 minutes for FanDuel. I feel like I want to just say that loud from the rooftops, just so people know you don't want to miss out on some Carlos Rodon exposure. That's what I'm getting at here. So we'll be turning it over here in 17 minutes to the Live Before Lock crew, but wanted to say that right away again if you just started tuning in. Let's talk offenses here. Twins, White Sox. Pick which one you prefer more for this slate.
I give the edge to the White Sox. I think that Cueto is still just sort of a decent pitcher, whereas I think Bundy is really on his way out. And the White Sox, I mean, both lineups have plenty of power, but I really like that there's some value in the White Sox lineup as well. You have Andrew Vaughn hitting second at 3,600. Abreu's only 3,900. Sheets is hitting fifth at 2,200. Moncada's at 2,400. And then also don't sleep on Tim Anderson with the massive price drop at shortstop. I think he's probably your cash game shortstop on DraftKings. Like, I'd be pretty surprised if he isn't. Even Luis Roberts, only 4,500. So I think the pricing on the White Sox is really appealing.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're the better stack to be getting to today. I still like my Minnesota Twins, but negative leverage, pretty tough. I mean, as much as I don't like Johnny Cueto, and maybe you're going to play more of him, maybe I'll get to a little bit now. So I'm kind of evaluating some stuff because, Cole Irvin, the more I say that out loud, the more it hurts my soul. So looking at these Twins bats, hey, Byron Buxton is pretty good at baseball, but he's 5,800. I'm going to prefer Acuna at their current ownerships. We'll see if anything changes between now and an hour and 10 minutes between now and the DraftKings lock. Carlos Correa anytime at shortstop. But as you said, Tim Anderson's now $500 cheaper. Hard for me to not look at the White Sox as just a better team to get to against Bundy, but still might get some shares in Minnesota. Anybody that really sticks out to you? Because mine is always Alex Kirilloff.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if we were still on the Alex Kirilloff.
We still are. We
Yeah.
still are.
No, I'm right there
I'm
with
going
you.
down with this ship so hard. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I remember the days of Baltimore prospects being really good and then coming up and failing miserably. But I think Kirilloff is going to end up being good. And the price tag's cheap. And you also have Jose Miranda right behind them, who's also a highly regarded prospect at 2,400. But this is a situation too, like with the White Sox in particular, even though they're popular, I kind of think they're not popular enough. 16% Tim Anderson, 18% or 20% Luis Robert at 4,500. Sheets pulling 13%. Yeah, they're getting double-digit ownership, but for guys that clearly stand out as like legit cash considerations, I'm kind of surprised they're not pulling more ownership. Like I'm surprised that the White Sox aren't in the like Jose Ramirez 25% range.
There will be no white flag upon my door. You're welcome. That was EMAC. He put Dido in. I had to sing it. Those are the rules, right? I'm just a dancing, singing monkey. That's all I do. Just give me some symbols. Just complete the outfit. Anything else from this game? I think we kind of covered it pretty in depth.
Yeah, no, I think that's it.
All right, let's talk about how stupid I am. Well, before we get to that, this is the last thing to throw out there. Stokastic tools and content right now, 50% off your first month just by using MLBDD. That is MLBDD, all caps, one word, for 50% off of everything we have behind the paywall. We constantly are talking about things like the top stacks tool, things like the top pitchers tool. Did you know we also have a top batters tool? You can go position by position individually. Shanzan did an amazing job putting this tool together. I use it every single day. I think you guys should be using this every single day. Probably don't reference it enough on shows is what I probably should. But part of that is that it's behind the paywall here and it's so valuable that I don't feel like I want to kind of extract all of the data from there. I think you guys should check it out for yourself. So use MLBDD to check that out for free. Also, I believe the free stuff today. Oh, nope, we have nothing free today. Sorry about it. So if you want to check that out, use this promo here today. We also have great content in golf. Obviously, cashed both of my golf bets last week. JT Poston, what an absolute boss. Went completely nuts in a very good way at the John Deere Classic. Looking forward to going over to Europe here this week, talking a little golf. Now that's a co-join event over in the Scottish Open. And then into the Open Championship, another milli maker for Adam and I to go dump our money into. That'll be enjoyable in 2 weeks. So looking forward to that. Adam, how was your golf week?
It was bad. I had 50% Grillo, which you would think would be good.
Yeah.
But I also had like 30% Day. I had like 30% Simpson. Yeah, it was bad. I briefly was like third in the 50K to first yesterday after Streelman's hole-in-one. But that lineup fell off too. So yeah, just got destroyed.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry. I won't gloat then.
I don't think I've had a winning
MLB player
golf week since I
projections are
talked to
free. I
Rousey.
didn't see where MLB player projections were free. That's nice of Joey. So you guys can check out MLB player projections. What'd you say, Adam? I cut you off.
Oh, I don't think I've had a winning golf week since I went on Jason's show.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, never again.
Should have been on with me.
Weren't you on it?
Showfield. No, I don't think I was. I don't think so. I'm never on Jason shows.
Okay.
Jason hates me.
Because I mean, I'm pretty sure it was somebody like Jason and somebody, and I just topped on. Maybe Ben. Maybe it was Ben or something.
Yeah, that's all right. Jason, the Jordan Spieth slappy of the world. Like, come on now. If you're gonna make your stand on luck box, 10 strokes gained putting, Jordan Spieth, and now apparently he's a ball striker. Everything's backwards. I don't even know what to believe in the golf streets anymore. But I do believe JT Poston came through for all of us as well. It's Chris Goddard up top 10 ticket. Could have cashed a top 5 for me, but I wasn't bold enough to go that direction.
Who ended up winning Live?
Oh yeah. I want to slap you virtually across the screen. Toronto minus 255 at Oakland 7.5. You're just the worst. We're going to Alec Manoah. He is my pitcher of the day today. Obviously, Hunter Green, I like for tournaments. Pretty easy to be over top of that, but there's no way that Alec Manoah isn't going to be my highest owned pitcher today amongst all of these top tier options. How do you rank Alec Manoah amongst those guys getting ownership?
1. I have a very hard time not saying 1. And I kind of mentioned that when we talked about Manaea before, where like I like Sean Manaea, but if I'm going to lose the ownership on one of those top 3 guys, I think it's likely to be him because Urias is the cheapest, and then I just think Manoah is the best out of the group. Has the good park to pitch in. Like if you want to nitpick and say that it's a slight negative for strikeouts because you have the insane foul territory, that's true. But it's a good matchup. It's a good park to pitch in. It's a very good park for run prevention. The bottom of this Oakland order is just like shockingly bad. You have Sky Bolt in there. He, so far in his major league career, has a 27.2% strikeout percentage through his first 81 plate appearances. He projects, Steamer has him just shy of 28%. Zips has him just north of 28%. Nick Allen, I'm double checking now, but pretty sure he's, yes, not a great strikeout guy, but projects for like an 86 WRC plus from Zips, 85 from Steamer. It's just a good spot for Manoah. I have a really, really hard time wanting to get away from him.
All right. Well, Alec Renault, that's kind of the easy one. Let me try to sell people on Cole Irvin. It is a ballpark that you can generally find some success out of the middle of nowhere. It's 66 degrees. It's a lot cooler over there than it's going to be in some of these other game environments. Wind's blowing out, but it's always muted there in Oakland and Toronto. As good as they are, moving them out of their home ballpark into Oakland, I just think I can get away with getting to some Cole Irvin on the very, very cheap end. I don't also know what to make of this. I know that Sean V put it into chat earlier, but hasn't given up a home run at home this season. That seems pretty absurd. If he's suppressing power, if he's finding some kind of a way to survive, I obviously wish it wasn't Toronto in this spot to be getting to some, but I've got north of 10% on him at 7,600. I don't know how else I'm going to get to some of these cheaper other pitchers. I just don't like any of them. Maybe some Cueto, I suppose. But Cole Irvin, am I just the dumbest person ever? Because I feel like it.
I don't think it's any worse than Cueto. Right now, like we have Cueto projected for 13.5 DraftKings points. We have Irvin at 11.7. I'm sure that other sites probably, that fluctuates. But the point is they're very similar, I think. I would give the slight edge to Cueto, but I agree with all your points too. Like the pitching weather here is good. The matchup's not good against Toronto, but it's not like the matchup's good for Cueto against Minnesota either. And I think we're talking about this still in the context of like just needing a cheaper pitcher that isn't one of the four guys that everybody is playing. There's not one guy. I mean, Pilkington, obviously at 6K, I think is kind of in a category of his own, but he has his own question marks too. There's no like mid-tier of pitching today where you're like, oh, that's a really good one. Like we don't have the $8,200 Dylan Cease, we have Urias, but that's it. So all of these guys have question marks, red flags. They're all low owned across 150 lineups. I would think I'm going to just be mixing and matching some of these guys in, especially when you think about kind of what that allows for like your lineups to do hitter wise, not only as far as saving money, but it lets you get to the Mets, it lets you get to the Guardians, it lets you get to these offenses that you like, but that are popular. It's like I had said when we talked about Cleveland, it's going to be really kind of pointless to say, okay, well, I'm playing Alec Manoah, I'm playing Sean Manaea, I'm stacking Cleveland, I'm rounding it out with the White Sox or something. Like, cool, it's going to project really well. You're going to have a lot of competition there. So using these low-owned pitchers like Irvin and just hoping that he strikes out 5 dudes and gets a lot of fly balls to the warning track is one way that it will allow you to play more of those hitters that you want to get to.
Yeah, that's really what it is. I mean, it's a cost play. It's a great ballpark for him at home, of course. But at the same time, forget everything I just said because Toronto is underowned. I feel as though there's got to be a part of me that also gets to a lot more Toronto bats than what the field currently has. It's such a potent offense. I'm going to play Cole Irvin. I'm going to play the Toronto offense. There's really no way around it. Anytime I see Raimel Tapia, that's just not going to happen for me. But who stands out to you from the Toronto side? I feel like Vlad Guerrero is pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, that guy's decent. Springer's good. Bichette's good. Kirk's a nice catcher option. I do still like getting to the Blue Jays stack here. They're projected for similar ownership to Atlanta, similar chances of being the top stack as well. Obviously, it's not a great park to hit in. It's not particularly good hitting weather either. Someone DM'd me on Twitter and I didn't get a chance to answer them, but they had said, with the amount of power in Toronto's lineup, does the ballpark really matter? And the answer is still yes. Toronto, you can put Toronto's lineup in a bad hitter's park and they're going to have more success than the average team, but they're still going to have a hell of a lot more success in good hitter's parks than they are bad ones. Like you're still going to get balls that go to the wall in Oakland that would be home runs in Toronto or be, home runs if it were 90 degrees somewhere. So it does matter. It still lowers their expectation. It's just that their expectation is still pretty solid because they're still a really good offense.
if I have a single share of an Oakland hitter, you can basically berate me in public in the town square for every day until eternity.
Yeah, so I can't even point to like which one I would want to get to.
Zero of them.
Yeah, I'm good
Zero.
with that.
It is so bad. This is a bad. Just play all the Manoa, everybody. That's what we've learned today. I can't honestly say. I mean, Ramon Laureano, but like, no, why? That was a fun
Like
segment.
if I randomly end up with some Oakland guys, I assume it's like Laureano, Seth Brown, Sean Murphy, but also hope and wouldn't be upset at all if that just doesn't happen.
All right, good. I would be very upset if you guys didn't hit the like button before we turn it over to the live before locker room. We got one game to go, 5 minutes, but hit that like button right now for us to show your support of Adam here and his lovely attire that he's put together for this July 4th celebration. Black on black on black. There's that. Man, what a guy. What a guy. We head to Colorado. We go to the Dodgers. We're looking at 3 implied runs here for Colorado, 5.5 now in the current number for the Dodgers. So that's gone up another half since earlier this morning, where the 8 total runs is now 8.5. Well, why? Because the Dodgers are really good, and Colorado away from Coors, not very good. We've got Julio Urias pulling a ton of ownership. I think he kind of becomes the guy that I prefer to be doing some of the pairing with Alec Manoah amongst the other popular guys. Sean Manaea, I'm going to probably just end up shorting by default. Kyle Wright's starting to come down. He's down to around 24.4%. So that's going to start to get appealing for me again, as that if that's going to kind of hold true as well. But how do you rank Julio Urias, the last of the very popular pitchers on this slate?
Yeah, he's like the second guy for me. I think Manoah is the best in terms of he has the really good matchup. He's, I think, a better pitcher than Urias. But you're getting $1,000 discount here. He's just going to, like you said, he's going to pair really well with whichever you prefer of Manoah, Manaea, Wright, any of these guys. He's going to just pair well because he's going to allow you to essentially spend like 17K at pitcher, 17 to 18K at pitcher. You know, if you pair him with any of those other guys, you're going to be able to functionally do whatever you want with bats, especially considering how cheap a lot of the hitters are today. He's still a good pitcher, even if he's not quite on the same level as those guys. 23.5% strikeout percentage this year, 3.91 xFIP. He's getting the Rockies outside of Coors Field, which is pretty much always a nice spot to target. If you had to point to a negative, it would be that you do have a right-handed heavy lineup from Colorado. They do not have a single left-handed bat in their lineup, so they all have the platoon advantage. He does only have a 20.6% strikeout percentage against righties this year, compared to 32.5% against lefties. If you go back to last season, 23.8% against righties, 30.1% against lefties. So that is a reason to kind of mute your excitement in Urias, I think, but overall, still a good matchup and still a very favorable price tag.
Yeah, and Colorado on the other side, they do have a 115 WRC plus against left-handed pitching this season, but let's always take it with a grain of salt because you take them away from Coors. I'm updating that. Here we go. Colorado away from Coors, still a 109 WRC plus, so nothing to scoff at, but that ISO plummets down to a 120 ISO as opposed to, under all situations, Colorado at a 158. So even against lefties there, you take them away from Coors, that should just be understood that that's going to be something that takes place. You're not going to be getting to any Colorado bats, are you?
Probably not. If I did, I think that it's Chris Bryant at 4,300, CJ Cron. I mean, 1 3 4 5 6 looks pretty good. Yep. Connor Joe, Chris Bryant, CJ Cron, Brendan Rodgers, Randall Grichuk. I don't hate that. But it's still not going to be any sort of high priority for me. Jonathan Daza is not exciting. He's cheap, but that's kind of all you can say there. Iglesias, Diaz, Hampson is not particularly exciting either. But there is some power in that Joe, Bryant, Cron, Rodgers, Grichuk grouping if you wanted to go there.
Yeah. We've got Malakar. Adam can rip off them stats. He sure can. The guy just can be fluid in that department. We all aspire. No, we don't aspire to be Adam. We aspire to win like Adam. There's that.
Just perfect human across the board.
Okay. Dodgers. Mookie Betts is 4,300. Why is Mookie Betts 4,300, Adam?
I have no idea. It's like the first thing I thought of with the price is like it's a pitcher coming back on a pitch count or something. But like obviously they're not going to just like have Mookie Betts hit a couple of times and take him out of the game. So completely broken pricing on Mookie Betts.
Yeah, he's pulling 25.5% ownership right now. He should probably end up higher than that. I don't even know. Normally, I'm just so vehemently against guys that are going to be popular one-offs in baseball, but this is kind of a hard one to get away from against Kyle Freeland. Also confirmed, not very good at pitching of baseballs. We're not going to roster Kyle Freeland, so I'm going to let you bring it home for us. Talk to me about your Dodgers interest.
Yeah, I mean they look good. Freeland, does get out of Coors Field, so that's always nice. So far this year, 293 WOBA allowed outside of Coors, 372 allowed at home. That's not really surprising, but you still have a bunch of really good right-handed hitters in the Dodgers lineup. Betts completely mispriced. Turner, Freeman, Smith normally priced. Justin Turner, Chris Taylor, those guys are good as well. So I think it kind of goes without saying the Dodgers are a good offense. They pretty much always are.
Yeah, they always are. No doubt about it. Let's finish out this way, Adam. So favorite pitcher to get to and favorite stack to get to if you're making one lineup for those single entry people out there. I want to give them some love here. A lot of single entry talk that we've had here lately. Who would be your favorite pitcher? Just to get a little bit different off of, we both love Manoah, but favorite pitcher and favorite stack.
I mean, my favorite pitcher, regardless, is Manoah. Favorite stack, I guess we're going to do that. It's Atlanta based on the numbers I'm looking at right now. It's not going to end up, once you see the actual ownership, Atlanta's not going to be my favorite stack, but looking at what we're looking at right now, Atlanta.
Yeah, they're also my favorite stack right
Josh
now.
Engleman has lost his mind and doesn't know what he's talking about in chat.
It's all right. All right, let's bring it home with this. This is going to be more fun. 4th of July speed round, burger or brat?
Burger.
Beer or seltzer?
Seltzer.
Fireworks, yay or nay?
No, not since.
Yeah, I'm with you. See, we found something we could agree on to end this out. Fireworks suck. You guys are crazy. But if you're enjoying them, enjoy them safely. Just don't be one of those crazy lunatics, back, especially now that I own a dog. I could not hate fireworks more. But Adam, any final words for the people as we get out of here?
Nope.
All right, Mike Lawrence, thank you so much. Stokastic Yo-castic. There it is. Found it. Good stuff. Always enjoyed it. Thank you, Adam. All the great work. I'm Eric Lindquist. I'm out of here. We're turning it over to Josh and Greg. Don't go anywhere. Catch you guys later. Happy 4th.
All right, it is that time once again. Good morning, everybody. Happy 4th of July. It's Monday, July 4th. Obviously, hope everybody has a safe and happy holiday. Let's get that out there right now. Hope you watch Independence Day. Hope you have a good time. And of course, I hope you cash some tickets. And that's what we're here to do. We're going to give you my best bet of the day from this slate of sports across the world. I'm not doing the hot dog eating contest. We do have a video on this very channel if you are looking to bet that. I'll be diving into some things, including how to get $200 free before I do. Let's do a little recap. They're a lot more fun when we're cashing tickets like this. Yesterday, Philadelphia Phillies, straight surgical, 4-0 at home over the Cardinals. We were all over that. The first 5 cashed, the game cashed. Just fantastic. Zach Wheeler, good job. That is what we want to do. Now, what else do we want to do? We want to add free money to the bankroll. I know a lot of you guys have been tuning in, supporting the stream, hitting the like button, all that is most appreciated. We want to give back, and BetMGM is the way to do that. They're giving people $200 free when they sign up as a new user. Use the link in the description of this video or the promo code BENSBET. If you want that $200 free, all you do, you sign up. Deposit $10 or more, that's fine, but you only need $10 for this, and then bet it on any baseball game. Whether you win or lose that bet, they give you $200 in the account. That's it. That simple. So if you want a couple hundred extra bucks for the summer, this is the way to take advantage. We've had a lot of people do it, and a lot of people have taken that money and turned it into something great. Other people have taken shots, missed, and then they're out nothing because it's a straight free roll. That is the opportunity that you have if you want to take advantage. Now, where are we going today? Back to the diamond. We're going to see how long we can keep this streak going in baseball. Certainly not my favorite sport, but when you're cashing tickets like this, why not? Milwaukee Brewers, Chicago Cubs, going with the Brew Crew at home today, and we'll dive into why. Let's start with the Cubs. 6-game homestand just ended. They're not having a good year. 32-47, 15-20 on the road. We've been picking our spots.
And we are live. Welcome to MLB Live Before Lock. It is still Monday, July 4th, the 4th of July. I assume everybody that's going to be in chat is significantly drunker than they were this morning when I did the strategy show, but who knows? Either way, I am Josh Engleman. I'm joined by Greg Ehrenberg. We are Shopper. I'd say we have plenty to talk about, but we've got a 7-game MLB slate, at least on DraftKings, 8 on FanDuel, and luckily in 20 minutes or whatever, we won't even have to talk about that either. Before we do anything, I haven't even looked at it yet. Let's see where these guys are. 145 likes at 600 people, not nearly good enough. Hit that thumbs up, run that number up quite a bit. We should be cresting 200 at this point. Let's put 200 on the board right now. Greg, how are you? How was your holiday weekend?
Oh, going excellent. Well, working today, like you. Yesterday, I did had a group of friends get together, went swimming, hung out, all that. So yesterday was a lot of fun. I'm going over to my parents tonight after, like the second we finish this show, I'm going over to my parents for dinner. So I only am playing one lineup tonight on DraftKings just because I have family obligations.
Fair. I've been eating all of the food that's been at my house since yesterday. So I ate what amounts to a tray of, or like a whole baking dish of banana pudding, which I really is making me feel not ideal. I ate a bunch of hot dogs earlier today, unprompted for lunch. There's piles of mac and cheese and pasta salad and all sorts of other nonsense in my fridge at this point. I wish I were still hungry. Unfortunately, at this point, I feel like I'm going to burst with banana pudding.
That would be an interesting for the stream. I think that would be good content.
Yeah, I ate a staggering amount of banana pudding. Way too much. My wife made 2 full, like, I don't know, what is it, like 9 by 11, this your standard issue, like glass baking dish, rectangle style, 2 full ones. I had to eat at least an entire full one at this point.
She made it for, it was supposed to be for the entire family, and you're like, oh, it's all for me.
I ate probably a third of it before Saturday night, before people even got to the house for Sunday. They did not get finished. We portioned up one of them, kept the third or the second one, and I have just wrecked that one so far today. Pretty happy about it.
We are so washed. This is absolutely the activities of older men while they're celebrating the holidays. I ate so much food, and that's it. That's where it ends.
That's all I got, man. This is the only interesting shit that happens in my life anymore. I don't have anything else. That's all I got. You want to talk baseball?
Oh, we could do that.
So you have not given your take on anything yet so far today, other than maybe some your general betting content.
Yep, I did some betting content earlier today, and I have had just a crazy run of doing home run because we're trying to get content earlier, so I do it early. I don't know what any of the lineups are going to be for whatever reason. Over the last 3 weeks, 2 weeks, I would say 75% of the players that I've done as my home run pick have not been in the lineup that day. It was Rowdy Tellez today.
Does that is that discouraging to you that you can't even pick people that maybe you should change the topic of the video to I predict who's going to play today?
If that was a betting line, it would be nice. But I mean, for the most part, I'm using our projections and Odd Chopper and then seeing like, okay, does this seem like a sensible bet or not to me? And yeah, and then just weird stuff happens where it's like, oh, there's a 0% chance rain. Well, this game's gonna get rained out anyway. And then Rowdy Tellez, guess what? Not in the lineup today. So a lot of weirdness.
Sounds fun, man. Really, really wish that I could just pick a bunch of stuff that doesn't even have to happen, and that I can call that my job. It's really, I wish that I could go a little bit of a different direction there, but apparently I can't. I'll talk baseball.
You'll be doing the betting content soon enough, and then it'll happen to you as well.
It is true. I will not care one bit. I hope everybody I pick doesn't play.
I bet all of them too. It was avoided bet, so it's not like it's the end of the world, but I would like to be giving out profitable home run bets, not ones that get voided because players aren't in the lineup.
Absolutely. Would you like to give out your thoughts on 7 DraftKings games?
We could do that.
Padres and Mariners kick everything off, and we've got Sean. I'm going to hit you with like the cliff notes of all of this because people have heard me talk about it at this point, and we got plenty of time to get through this. Sean Manaea is aggressively chalked today at pitcher. 3 guys are, in fact, but Manaea is close to the top of that list, in the middle of all the highly owned, priced pitchers. Where do you land on Manaea?
Sure. So without a doubt, he's a good option today. I'm not going to say anything otherwise, but to what you just said before, there's 3 chalk options at pitcher, and not to jump the gun and group all these guys in together when you're bringing in the first talking point, it's kind of impossible to not to, because the viableness of Sean Manaea is all relative to, in my opinion, Alex Renault and Julio Urias, who are the other 2 chalk pitchers on DraftKings. And of the 3, I think Manaea is the least talented, and he is the hardest matchup, and he's close to being the most popular today, and he doesn't have the cheapest price tag. So between Urias, Manoah, and Manaea is my least favorite option. I think he's going over-owned at 46%. If I had to play a cash game lineup right now on DraftKings, I would rather roster Urias and Manoah as the 2 cash game pitchers. So I don't have an issue with Manaea individually, other than I think the 2 other really popular pitchers are better than him, and he's just a little bit too owned. So if I was playing 150 lineups for this slate, I would certainly be underweight to the field on Manaea.
That works for me. I don't have a sense of what I'm doing yet. I'm still running all of my crunches. My guess is that I'm probably in around that 40% mark for Manaea. It was looking to me like I was going to be a little bit lighter on Urias, but I will hash that out in a little bit. I don't get the sense that you have a big Chris Flex intake for today.
I guess this kind of counts as take. What the fuck is the deal with his price tag on DraftKings? Like, why is he one of the worst pitchers on the slate and one of the more expensive ones? 8,200 is not like he's the most expensive, but hey, who'd you rather play, Chris Flexen at $8,200 or Julio Urias at home against the Rockies for $8,300? It's a pretty dumb price tag. If he was priced reasonably, I think there could be reason to consider him. They're just he isn't.
No, he's not. To me, he's unplayable. If you end up with like a lineup and you play 150 and you don't pay attention to it, I can see how it would happen, but it's not a priority guy whatsoever. Are there priority bats in this game for you? Padres side, Mariners side, do either one of those teams stack up as a team that you're very interested in today?
Yeah. So just before I talked about how Chris Flexen, I don't think is particularly good. And we have the Padres coming in. It looks like a little bit under-owned today, not picking up that much ownership. Also kind of cheap price tags across the board. Manny Machado's back in the lineup for them. That's a nice little boost. And then bring up the numbers for Chris Flexen this year. It's not only that he's not a great real-life baseball pitcher, 4.32 ERA, but a 5.41 expected ERA. He also has a 32.5% ground ball rate this year. So that is a lot of balls getting hit in the air against Flexen. And the more balls that are hit in the air, the more opportunities there are for home runs. So there's a pretty good opportunity, not only for the Padres to hang a big number on Flexen, but if they do, I think it's going to be on fly balls and a lot of extra base hits. So I do think the Padres are a little bit under-owned and a team that makes sense.
I agree. I think they're slipping through the cracks a little bit. Hopefully I get a little bit more of the Padres. I assume, even if you aren't the biggest Manaea fan, that you're not really getting to Seattle.
So I think if you're playing 150 lineups, I think because Manaea is so over-owned, in my opinion, and also the Mariners don't have a bad offense. I think that there's reason to be overweight to the 1% number to the Mariners in large field GPP. But if you're somebody who's playing, single entry, 3 max, 20 max, even, I wouldn't consider stacking against Manaea in that situation.
Alrighty, then let's take a look at the Tigers and Guardians. I was pretty interested in this game earlier today. It's going my way now, but not the way that I actually wanted to go. 4.1 run implied total for the Tigers, 4.5 for Cleveland. Alex Fado and Connor Pilkington. Pilkington now up to 15% ownership, 14% ownership, in and around that number. I agree with it. I'm actually even a little bit more interested in Pilkington than that. But at the same time, the public now is there in a slightly more aggressive way. Are you paying down for Pilkington? Cheapest pitcher on today's slate.
So did we get I'm pretty sure we did. Let me check. Do we have anybody sitting with this being the tail end of a doubleheader?
I don't know.
Because it is the second game of doubleheader, and that lineup was just coming in as we were starting. So I'm just going to pull this. I've
got Riley Green, Baez, Grossman, Cabrera, Eric Haas, Spencer Torkelson, Castro, Scope, Reyes. Looks like the normal Tigers lineup for me.
I just realized that's a dumb question. There's nobody that could be in and out of the Tigers lineup and be like, oh, this lineup doesn't suck. Like, it sucks no matter what. So I get for the Guardian side, it would matter more if we had, like Jose Ramirez or something like that. But yeah, all right. Dumb question by me. It doesn't matter. No matter what iteration of the Tigers lineup's going out there, it's going to be shitty hitters. And the other thing too, in terms of Pilkington, he's shown to have a little bit of strikeout upside from what we've seen from him so far at the big leagues. And there aren't that many cheap pitchers to like on this slate tonight. We have, let's see, who are the cheap guys on DK today? We have to choose from Pilkington. I mean, that's a better option than, say, Kyle Freeland, Dylan Bundy, Alex Fado, or Dakota Hudson. So by default, I think he's miles better than every other cheap option we have. So if you need to roster somebody for cheap, Pilkington is in a more than a decent matchup, one of the best matchups possible. For a cheap pitcher, he's a 22% K rate. Also has had really good strikeout numbers historically in the minor leagues. 30% K rate last year in Double-A with the White Sox. Also spent time in Double-A with the Guardians, then the Indians, over 30% K rate. So he's always had strong minor league strikeout numbers considering the matchup. I think he is the best punt option to get to as an SP2 on DK.
Well, I'm glad we're on the same page then. I'm really curious to see if I end up with as much as I think I'm going to get, but I'm assuming that I'm in the 20s or so when it inevitably gets to that point. I've got my sim running in the background, although I've got a sneaky suspicion this is going to take longer than I actually wanted to. From a bats perspective, the Tigers are pretty aggressive when it comes to value. They are second. Cleveland's third and much better top stack odds. So I'm curious, do you prefer the Cleveland side of this game, the Detroit side of this game, both, or neither?
Neither is really a strong option for me on this slate. But if I had to pick one, it would clearly be the Cleveland side because they have Jose Ramirez, they have Frammo Rice, like they have actual hitters in the lineup. The Tigers just have sucked this year. And I don't think there's that much need to save a crazy amount of salary on DK. Have you noticed lately that the pay up options have just not been all that expensive at pitcher? It's really changed.
Been awful.
It's really changed how I've gone about some of my stacks on DraftKings because I haven't needed to look at the value metric as much in our top stacks tool because today the pitchers that are chalk that we're really like paying up for, primarily Julio Urias, Alec Renault. The field is going to be playing Minaya a lot as well. I like those other guys more, but it doesn't mean there's an issue with Minaya. These guys are 8,300, 9,300, and 9,000. Like, what the hell am I doing with all the cheap bats on the Detroit Tigers? It's just a worse offense, and then I'm leaving a bunch of salary on the table. So I don't really find them all that desirable. The Guardians at least have competent hitters in the lineup, so that would be the much stronger stack for me.
All right. I am leaning a bit more towards the Guardians. I know the Tigers were popping up a bit for me on my preliminary crunches earlier today. I don't think that's going to be the case now because I just don't think I'm going to need this like sea of 2K guys any longer. And I think I'm just going to be more loaded into that like Ramirez, Reyes, Jimenez trio in the center of the Guardians lineup.
And Detroit's kind of popular today also.
They are. Sixth in aggregate ownership at a little over 7%, which is quite a bit higher than their current top stack percentage. So
yeah, and for the record, I think Cleveland is going over-owned on the other side as well, but they're not over-owned to the point where I think they're a fade. It's just over-owned to the point where it's a team I'd be underweight to. Detroit at their ownership, I have no interest in stacking.
Okay. Anything else that you want to touch on from this game?
No. And by the way, just to point out what I mentioned before, fairly normal lineup for Cleveland as well. Kwan is in, Ramirez, Franmil Reyes batting cleanup, Ahmed Rosario's there at the top. So the guys that matter the most to Cleveland, they're in there today.
All righty. I'm going to go to another one quickly. Just keep this pace moving. But you guys should probably hit the like button again. I'm assuming you didn't listen to me when I wanted to go to 200. 175. Be embarrassed. Be embarrassed. We should be at 200 likes. Hit that thumbs up. Mets and Reds. Mets are like a full run favorites here. Taiwan Walker and Hunter Green. Interesting sort of matchup between these two guys. Hunter Green, clearly big time strikeout stuff. Worse matchup in this spot. Are you looking at these pitchers with Hunter Green currently pulling no ownership? With where did he go? Taiwan Walker pulling basically no ownership. Do you want to be over the field on Green or Walker? One is good, has a bad matchup. The other not as good, great matchup. It's a tough spot.
I think both sides, the Hunter Green side and the Mets offense, are really excellent stacks there because the Mets have one of the best offenses in baseball. And if Hunter Green gets guys out, it's via strikeouts. He's got ridiculous stuff. He is an average fastball velocity of nearly 100 miles per hour this year, 98.7 to be exact. But when he needs to ramp it up, he's over 100 miles per hour when he starts to get into trouble. So he's a 28.9% strikeout rate. To the point you mentioned before, the field isn't getting to him. He's projected for 3% ownership today. Is that the number still? Yes. Yeah. So Hunter Green, 3.5% ownership. We have him with a 12.7% chance to be one of the top two pitchers. So I think that he's a viable pay-up option to differentiate from the likes of Urias, Manoah, and Manaea. But at the same time, too, he's given up a lot of hard contact this year. So if it goes poorly for Hunter Green, it tends to go very poorly. So I see a lot of upside in both sides of this. The Mets are going to be really popular. I still think they're a stack worth getting to, but I think Hunter Green is certainly worth more than 3% ownership as well.
Well, let's talk about the Mets then, who are pulling in basically the most ownership of any team. We've got four separate teams: the Mets, the Dodgers, the Indians, the White Sox, and the Twins, who are all more or less the same. They're in the double digits. They're way ahead of the rest of the group. So it's 5 teams on one island and then the rest of the slate. Not the same for top stack odds, however. The Mets are basically twice as likely to be the top stack in comparison to any other team that you choose: Atlanta, the Dodgers, Toronto, Cleveland. How do you balance out the Mets today?
Yeah, and I mean, per our top stacks tool, and this rarely happens where a team is projected to be the most popular on the slate and also have positive leverage. It just goes to show how much upside there is for the Mets in this spot, because we don't have a single team other than the Mets with 10% chance or better to be the top stack team. And the Mets are 18.2. So they are lapping the field in terms of top stack odds. And in terms of ownership, they're the most popular. But to what you said before, they're not lapping the field. We've got a bunch of teams grouped together there: White Sox, Twins, Guardians, Dodgers, Mets. So these teams are all close together in ownership, but the Mets have such far and away the best top stack odds that this is one of the rare spots that I think the chalk is warranted for an offensive stack.
We're on the same page. Do you see any appeal in Cincinnati? They're not at the ass end of our top stack list, so that helps.
Not really, just because, well, number one, they are not a good team at all. Tywin Walker has been serviceable this year. I don't want to roster Walker at all. I know you had asked before I launched into talking about Hunter Green if I have any interest in either of the pitchers. Tywin Walker's price tag doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me at 8,900. If you were to say, does he have a better than 1% chance to be in the optimal lineup, then yeah, I guess from that standpoint, he's under-owned, but he's not somebody I would have any consideration to in my lineups. There isn't that much strikeout upside, and he's just mispriced. He's much too expensive.
Is there anything else you want to touch on in this game?
I think we should talk about the ownership on the Mets from this standpoint, because they're going to be popular. You and I have said that they warrant the ownership, but that doesn't mean that you could just play the Mets and play all of the chalk pitchers and that's just an okay way to approach this slate. I still think if you're playing the Mets, which it's a team that I definitely want to stack very high priority, I do think we need to get a little different at pitcher when we're playing the Mets. So Connor Pilkington could fit into the mix in that sort of scenario. We'll talk about Kyle Wright in a little bit. I think that he's a pay up option that doesn't look totally different from Urias, Manoah, and Manaea. So I think that he's somebody who we could also roster on the high end to differentiate some of those Mets stacks. But I wouldn't play the chalkiest starting pitchers with the Mets just because you're going to be duping with a lot of people.
I actually think Walker works pretty well for a Mets stack if you want to go that direction. He's not really pulling all that much ownership. there's at least mild synergy with, getting a win and assuming that the team has scored some runs at the very least. Nothing negative, no negative reason to assume that you could take your pitcher at least. I'd be happy to go there for another starter that's just simply not pulling all that much ownership.
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to be popular. So clearly you're differentiating the lineup. I just have an issue with the 17.7% K rate and the fact that his fastball velocity is down a little bit from last year. So he's pitching fine, right? 2.72 ERA, 3.83 expected ERA. The Reds offense isn't any good, but I do get concerned when a pitcher's in a very hitter-friendly park and is just not generated strikeouts this year.
Well, this is the time of the show where I normally give you guys the schedule for the rest of the day. That one doesn't exist because when Greg and I leave this show, there are no more live shows. So adios to all of you after this. MLB player projections, though, are free. That's a good thing. That's better than not having any more shows. If you're playing tonight's MLB slate that locks in, 30 minutes or something like that? Was it 6:40? Is that what lock is?
Yep, we've got 30 minutes.
There we go. 29 minutes now. Time is just ticking away. Make sure you're using our player projections, which are free today. Go to stokastic.com to get those. Let's go to Cardinals and Braves. 4.2 run implied total for the Cards, 5.2 for the Braves. Dakota Hudson, Kyle Wright. Wright is getting some ownership, but he's like the poor man's version of the pay-ups for today. He is also a pay-up, but he's only 25% owned. Everybody else is in the mid-40s. Do you see Wright differently today, or does that all just make sense to you?
Ish. So I think that he's a lot riskier than the other pitchers on the high end. I don't think the upside is any different because Kyle Wright's been really, really solid this year. 3.03 ERA, 3.48 expected ERA. In terms of the strikeouts, that's been really solid at 25.7%. The Cardinals have a good offense, but it's also very right-hand dominant, so they're much better against lefties than righties. They don't strike out a whole bunch against righties. They get the bat on the ball. But I do think this is a spot where Kyle Wright could potentially find some success. And to pull in OddsShopper as our sponsor today in this, let me see if the odds have changed on this. But at least earlier today, the strikeout prop for Kyle Wright was 5.5 with pretty significant plus money on the over. So yeah, you could get Kyle Wright at over under 4.5 strikeouts, but you have to pay a lot of juice on the over for that. Or you could bet Kyle Wright over 5.5 strikeouts and get it at plus 130. So I think that's something else that also makes sense with Kyle Wright because he's produced good strikeout results. The last couple of outings haven't been great for him for strikeouts, but overall for the season, we've seen strikeout upside from him. We've seen him produce strikeouts in some difficult matchups at times. So if we look at the tools, at least on the site, also when we're comparing Kyle Wright to the other high-end pitchers, we have the 23.6% chance to be a top two pitcher. It's nearly identical to Manoah, and Urias. It's slightly lower, but nothing that is that significant. So I think that Kyle Wright, where he really makes a lot of sense for me, if you want to stack the Mets in single entry, which I think is totally reasonable, Kyle Wright would make a lot of sense in that lineup because particularly in single entry, I don't think Kyle Wright's going to garner any ownership. He's going to be like 5-10% owned. So I think he's a really good single entry pitcher if you're playing a chalky Met stack.
I like that shout. Do you think the Braves lineup just sucks like Sean V, or do you think that they're the second most likely top stack like our data says?
Well, I think to say that the Braves suck is a little bit silly. They won the World Series last year, and they've been I don't know exactly what it is, but I'm fairly sure they've one of the best records in baseball over the last month. So no, they don't suck. And yeah, I think this is a very, very fantastic team to get to. They're one of our most positively leveraged teams, and the field is not getting there in a way that's all that significant. We're looking at 10% top stack odds with a 5% chance to be a top pitcher, to be the top scoring team. And they have a pretty easy matchup against Dakota Hudson. So I understand people might just look at the ERA for Dakota Hudson and be like, oh, 3.83, whatever. He's around a league average pitcher, but he's benefited from a lot of good luck this year. He's a 272 BABIP. That's something that's not going to maintain. He's a 74.1% strand rate. That's probably not going to maintain either. The one thing he's going in his favor is he does induce a lot of ground balls. So he does get himself out of trouble by getting double plays by all those ground balls, but all the underlying metrics suggest this is not a great pitcher. 4.91 expected ERA. If you look at the Steamer projection, for instance, they have with a 4.78 ERA the rest of the season. So I think that Dakota Hudson is certainly a pitcher to pick on. By the way, also lowest average fastball velocity of his entire career by nearly a full mile per hour.
Braves, by the way, via base runs on FanGraphs so far this season, 4.96 runs per game. That is the second best offense behind the all-star team known as the Los Angeles Dodgers. So just trash, you know?
Yeah, just clearly a terrible offense against pitcher. And you have the price wrong too, Sean. Sean's coming out. He's like, oh, he's Dakota Hudson's 5,900. I didn't even realize that his case is pro Dakota Hudson, not even anti the Braves. But he's 6,900, not 5,900.
Correct. We got to talk about the Cardinals though, because that is also the sixth best offense in baseball as per base runs. Kyle Wright's getting some ownership. While we might think that he's a good play because the other pitchers are negatively leveraged, are the Cardinals bats getting slept on here?
Not really. I mean, to an extent, from the standpoint of they're not picking up any ownership. So if you were playing 150 lineups, it'd be reasonable for it to be a team you're overweight to. But from a realistic standpoint, I don't think that they have great top stack odds or anything like that, because Kyle Wright has pitched really well this year. And I think he's a pitcher too that data doesn't really know what to do with, because he was formerly one of the top pitching prospects in baseball. And he sucked when he first came into the big league. So for an extended period of time, he sucked. And the Zips and Steamer projections are still not high on him, but I buy into what I've seen out of Kyle Wright this year. So that is something where I rely on the Zips and Steamer projections a lot. And I know you do as well. But every once in a while, particularly young pitchers who are breaking out, I do think they're a little slow to update to that. And Kyle Wright this year, 3.03 ERA, 3.48 expected ERA, 3.05 FIP. Here's the thing that stands out to me the most, though. His average fastball velocity last year was 93.7. This year, it's 95.2. So that's a very, very tangible change. He's throwing considerably harder, and I think that's definitely helping lead to better results. He also pitched really well in the minor leagues last year. So I think that he's a much better pitcher than projections have him rated as in general right now.
I am getting to the Cardinals if they maintain this low ass ownership. I'm like, I don't know, 2.5 times the field, but that is still I just finished my crunch actually. That's still my 10th most owned team. So I can't exactly say that I'm just smashing the Cardinals. The only way I have 6% aggregate and we're projecting 2.3. So big stand on a team that's not owned, but like not a lot of true ownership.
Yeah, no, I think that's reasonable.
Do you think the Braves are as low owned tonight as we are showing them to be?
It's hard because there's been a few slates lately where we have not had the Braves projected for a lot of ownership. And then the slate lock's like, oh, cool. They're the most popular team on the entire slate. And I don't know.
They are my most owned team right now.
So for me, this is the team I'm stacking in single entry today. And I like I said, I'm only playing one lineup because of family obligations tonight. If I was playing 150, the Braves would still be my most rostered team and the Mets would be coming in second. But yeah, I think the Braves are going way under owned, and it's hard to say if they're. If you had to give me an over under of 5 point, I would say they're going to be over that number, but I don't think that means that they're going to be chalk or anything like that.
Okay. Well, I hope they're not, because they are. I have 13% aggregate exposure to the Braves right now, where we're projecting 5. I would love that to be the case. I basically have the same gap for the Blue Jays. They are my 2 biggest stacks for today, but we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to touch on in this game?
No, we got the. By the way, do you think that's over 4.5 strikeouts / over 5.5 strikeouts for Kyle Wright at significant plus money? Would you be on board with that as a bet?
I have him at 5 on the dot.
Okay.
So
we have him projected for 6.5 over on OddsShopper.
That's a lot of strikeouts. This is a team. I mean, for me, the Cardinals lineup does not have a lot of strikeouts in it. It's Gorman and Austin Romine, and then everybody else is guys that like basically don't strike out. So that feels like a really big strikeout number to me.
Let's see. So the other thing too is because you use Steamer, correct?
I do.
Because I know they do not have him projected very highly as a strikeout pitcher going forward.
We're talking Wright?
Yeah.
Yeah, 23% is the K rate that I have in right now.
Yeah, and he's
even if I bump that to like 27 or 28, he's not going to go from 5 to 6.5. Like,
yeah,
I'm going to still be light. But I would.
It's hard to strike out.
I would be a little bit higher if I just sort of treated him a little bit differently.
Which and the only reason I like 5.5
to do.
The reason I like 5.5 is just because it was plus 130 on the over.
Yeah. That's, to me, that's a lot more reasonable. All right, where's that upload? Let's get these lineups in and then could get back to screwing around. All right, back to discussing these lovely baseball games. We'll go to the White Sox and the Twins. 4.7 run implied total for the White Sox, 4.4 for the Twins. Johnny Cueto, Dylan Bundy. Are you getting pitching here?
No. So Cueto this year, who, by the way, also like FanDuel has him priced at $9,300 for the late slate, which is totally crazy. He's 7,300 over on DK, and he's a pitcher that's really hard to evaluate because nothing he does is based in arm talent or any kind of stuff that he has. It's based on deception, weird deliveries. He only throws 91 miles per hour. He's maintained a 3.33 ERA this year. It's only been 9 outings for him. The underlying numbers are worse, and he's generally sucked the last 3 years he's been in the big league. So I think there's pretty heavy regression coming towards the way of Johnny Cueto. But I can't roster him in DFS.
I do have a bit. I'm at like 12% right now, but I'm the same spot on Hunter Green. I'm the same spot on Fado. I'm basically the same spot on Bundy. I'm getting a lot of these like 3% owned guys and like just kind of casting a bigger net at the expense of Urias. I have Manoah and Manaya both in the 40s. But I am getting a little bit less of Urias and just kind of spreading that around a little bit wider. Something that I didn't expect as I started prepping this slate.
So what did you end up doing with Manaya then? Just to circle back.
Neutral. I have 40%.
Okay.
And I'm a little bit over on Pilkington, nothing crazy. A bit light on Kyle Wright too, which I don't love. Kind of makes me wish that I had a little bit more of the Cardinals, but it's fine. Let's get back to this game because bats a little bit more interesting in this one, considering the White Sox are the second most owned team on the slate. The Twins not too far behind at 5th. We're talking White Sox as the best value stack as well. When you look at this game, do you prefer a side?
Yeah. So when it comes to the White Sox, they're over-owned. I feel pretty confident about that. I mean, they're projected for 14% ownership. I just don't think that they have 14% top stack odds. And the same goes for the Twins as well. So there's reason to think there's upside in both offenses, just not nearly as much as what the field thinks. So we could roster the Twins at, well, I was looking at the FanDuel ownership, but either way, these are two of the most over-owned offenses on the slate. So the Twins have the second largest negative leverage score. The White Sox have the second largest or the third largest. And then we've got the Dodgers, we'll talk about in a little bit. They have the most negative leverage score. So part of the issue is that all these teams are projected with similar ownership to the Mets, and the Mets just have way better top stack odds than any of these teams. So it's hard to think that any of these teams are worth what their ownership is. I'd rather just play the Mets at similar ownership with 2 to 3x better top stack odds.
I'm fading the White Sox pretty aggressively. They're my second biggest team fade. A bit under the field on the Twins. Got like 7.5% aggregate exposure there for Minnesota. We've got 11 coming in, but Minnesota is my 5th most exposed team. It's nobody in particular, like 10% Correa. Everybody else is sort of in that 7-ish% range. I'm pretty flat across the board. So I don't really have too much to say. And with the White Sox, I'm just avoiding them like the plague, basically. Only Lou Bob got to 10%.
Yeah. And the one thing that's driving their ownership a lot, I would assume, is just the cheap price tags. But like you and I talked about before, it's not that necessary to save salary. What are we doing with the saved salary? There's no pitcher to pay up for. They're the only offense to pay up for, really, in terms of really expensive. The Dodgers are expensive, but they're also a little bit overowned. The Mets are expensive. Like, it's just not necessary to get the salary savings.
Really isn't. I don't have anything else to talk about in this game.
No, just both offenses. If anybody's playing them, I understand why. It's, to me, just more ownership than what they should be.
So we've got 15 minutes until lock. I would be remiss if I didn't get this little promo in. We got to talk BetMGM. And I haven't done this read yet, and it's one I've been actually excited to do because the deal is so preposterous that if you have the ability to take advantage of this, if you can bet in a legal state, if you have not started yet at BetMGM, you got to do this. This is a live before lock offer right now. There's a link in the description of this video that will set you up. If you bet $10 on any MLB money line tonight, you win $200 free. That's it. That's simple. Bet 10 on any money line and you win $200. You just need the game to get to the point where it's a game. And I got a sneaky suspicion they'll give you that money even if something happens and it doesn't end up being an actual game today. That's free money, guys. That's a free $200 for you straight out of the gate. If you're interested in sports betting, if you haven't done it yet, this is the perfect opportunity for you. Get as much free loot out of all of these sports books as you can and do it through us because that's even cooler. You can use OddsShopper to shop these lines to see all the bets that you could want to place at BetMGM. But really, guys, the key piece here, I don't have to sugarcoat it. You get $200 for no risk whatsoever. Just take advantage. You'll probably spend $10 way worse than this.
Yeah, and then you take that $200 and what do you do with it? You buy a Ferrari or something, right?
Yeah, buy a Bitcoin. It's cheap now.
Lamborghini, right? With $200, a lot of money. Get whatever you want with it.
Exactly. Do you want to talk about the Oakland A's and how good they are today?
Oh, yeah, just the clearly best team in baseball. And it is a little annoying that, hey, every slate the A's are on, by default, the pitcher going up against them is chalk. Can we at least get the pitchers going up against them priced a little bit more expensive? Does every pitcher not only have to get to pitch against them, but also be reasonably priced? Because Alec Renault is one of the best pitchers in baseball. He's in the mix for the Cy Young in the American League this year. And DraftKings is like, all right, $9,300 is a fair price point. No, it's not. So he's going to be really popular. It's like, I actually think it's a little crazy if there's not a bigger gap between his ownership and guys like Urias and Minaya. Because it's Oakland. Sure, he's on the road, but Oakland's such a pitcher-friendly park that I still think it's probably a good situation for Manoah anyway. And he has had some kind of weird numbers with his strikeouts this year where they've been down, but his swinging strike rate is more or less the same as what it's been in previous years. So it's not anything that's too concerning for me. And he's going to generate a lot of outs anyways. A 2.09 ERA, a 2.8 expected ERA. So I mentioned his strikeouts are down. 22.7% this year, is 27.7% last year. But the swinging strike rate is at 11.2%. His career number is 12%, so it's not all that much different. So I'm not too concerned about the strikeouts for Manoah, particularly not in this matchup. He's the safest pitcher on the slate. I think he's the highest upside of any pitcher on the slate, so just play him.
He's my favorite pitcher for sure. He's the pitcher I have the most of. I don't have much to add. I essentially don't have Oakland today, so I'm not really going that direction. I am, however, going to the Blue Jays. They are my second most exposed stack. We have them 10th in ownership, 5th in top stack. Bo Bichette is my most exposed hitter at this point. Give me all of the Blue Jays. Where are you?
Yeah, it's such a good spot for them against Cole Irvin. And this is also a really weird. So there's a couple teams that just have weird ownerships. I mean, one of them is the Braves going up against the Cardinals. But I think the Toronto one is even weirder because Cole Irvin, there's nothing I see about him where I'd be like, oh, this is a good big league pitcher. And the Blue Jays are one of the most potent offenses in baseball. So maybe people just look at the ERA, kind of like with Dakota, and be like, oh, the ERA isn't bad for Cole Irvin at 3.58. Yeah, but he generates no strikeouts and he's a 5.41 expected ERA. So last year, also 4.92 expected ERA. The year before, 7.54. The year before that, 6.2. By and large part, this has not been a good pitcher in Cole Irvin. He gives up a lot of fly balls, a lot of home run to fly balls as well. So 12.1% this year overall for his career. It's been above league average. So I agree with you. I think this is a really good spot for the Blue Jays, and they are not picking up ownership from the field.
They are not. I hope that holds because they're my second most exposed team, and that is enough to be well over the field on these guys. So team Toronto all the way. Go Bo Bichette, who's in 24% of my lineups.
I have nothing else I could add to that other than just for reference for you guys. And, you know, I know this is content behind the paywall, but it's a good frame of reference. And you guys are watching for the holiday, but the top stack odds for the Blue Jays compared to all of the teams that are also popular and that are projected to be overowned by us, So we have the Blue Jays projected for 3.8% ownership. Other teams today, the Dodgers, 13.9%. The Guardians, 12.9%. The White Sox, 14.2, 11.3. So we're getting about a fourth of the ownership on the Blue Jays compared to any of these teams. And the Blue Jays have better top stack odds than all of them other than the Dodgers. And the Dodgers, they're only separated by a half percentage point, and the Dodgers are 4x the ownership. So I think the Blue Jays are just crazy, crazy undervalued by the field here.
When I look at my hitter exposures, I'm like really the top 4 guys I have, I'm quite a bit over the field on all 4. 3 of these guys are in low single digits. Bo Bichette, Acuna, Austin Riley, Matt Olson. Like if that holds, I will happily have 4x the field on Riley or Olson, Bo Bichette, Acuna. Like I'm very happy to be getting a lot of the guys that are at low ownership that are just studs. It's not like I'm not leaking into any garbage, so it's making me feel pretty good.
Yeah, and by the way, another good point by Matt in the YouTube chat is that the Blue Jays are the only team whose lineup hasn't come out yet. When we go into lock and that's the situation, especially on a holiday, people are generally like, all right, fuck it. I'm not waiting for this Blue Jays lineup. Actually, this kind of makes me inclined to, so I was playing the Braves in single entry. I might switch that to the Blue Jays because I really do think that ownership, to your point about it holding, I think it probably will. The slate locks in 9 minutes. We don't have a lineup from them yet.
I think you're right.
By the way, how funny is it that the only Canadian baseball team is the team that's going to fuck up everybody's night plans because everybody has to sit in and wait for the Canadian baseball team lineup to come out?
It's amazing. Oh, Canada. I don't know the rest of it. Final game.
I know the version from South Park.
Me too. I know that one better than the real one, that's for sure. Urias and Freeland. To me, I'm lighter on Urias. I'm probably underrepresenting how bad Colorado is. I get why he's as owned as he is, though. 8,300 is just not the correct price tag here. Feel free to talk about how Urias is good because I'm just going to end up raining on his parade.
Yeah. So one thing too about the matchup, the Dodgers numbers are always a little bit weird because they play half their games at Coors Field, but this has been just a garbage team on the road. You take them away from Coors Field over the last 10 years, it's just by far the worst WRC plus in baseball. We see this all the time. You put that team on the road and they just don't hit anymore. And Urias this year has been really solid. 2.69 ERA, 2.99 expected ERA. His strikeout rate is down a little bit from last year. 23.5% this year was 26.2% last year. You know, part of that is just going to be because there's a DH in the National League now, but something else too. His strikeouts have been way up as of late. So over the last month, his strikeout rate has gone up, where his lack of strikeouts is more so at the beginning of the year. So going forward, I don't really have any concerns about Urias, and this is about as easy a matchup as possible. If you want to be underweight to him just because he's nearly 50% owned in tournaments, that's all well and good. But for the purpose of cash games, I think easily the best cash game combination tonight on DraftKings is Urias and Manoah, like no brainer.
Do you have our projection for him in front of you right now? Fuck, I do. So I should just shut up.
Okay. Then
oh, actually, no, I don't. Well, I guess I do. I had a tab open and I thought it was the projections and it wasn't. All right, Urias 18.6. Okay, so I think the biggest issue for me is that I'm just light from a projection standpoint.
What is? I wonder.
If we have him ahead of Manaea. I have Manaea significantly ahead of Urias, and that's where I'm getting.
Does not have Urias projected well, and it's actually a projection I don't understand. So they have Urias this year with a 4.01 ERA. He's never had an ERA anywhere close to that. 2022 this year 2.64, last year 2.96, the year before 3.27, the year before that 2.49. So I'm kind of curious how he's never pitched a full season with an ERA higher than 3.27, how they would come away with a 4.01 ERA projection for him.
Not sure. I'm just trying to look at rates and stuff, but nothing crazy to me in any of the projected steamer rates. A little bit light on Ks maybe, but nothing too crazy.
He's also...
They are pretty pessimistic.
Yeah, so this is something also. He's always been a low BABIP guy. And a lot of times when that happens, I also assume that if somebody's really low BABIP, like, okay, it's just not going to maintain. He does it every year, though. 242 this year, 272 last year, 256 the year before, 257. based on what we've seen from him, I just think it's reasonable to think this guy induces a lot of soft contact. He's always going to be a lower than league average BABIP guy. And that's something you rarely see from projection systems.
Do you like the Dodgers bats?
Not as much as the field. So we have
I'm
the Dodgers
under as well. I still have a bunch, but I'm under the field.
So when it comes to the Dodgers, they're really popular today. They're projected to be the second most popular offense or third most popular offense on the slate. Now, White Sox have crept slightly ahead of them, but look at the teams they're sandwiched in between. We could get the Braves with better top stack odds for a third of the ownership, or the Blue Jays with nearly identical odds for a fourth of the ownership. So they're just sandwiched in between two pay up offenses that I think are way better relative to ownership.
I don't get the sense that I have to ask you about Colorado Rockies bats here.
Yeah, I am not going to play them, but maybe you are, since you're light on Urias.
I don't believe that I am, but let me
Okay.
look. I am light on Urias. I don't believe that I am getting to the Rockies. I did not look with any sort of vigor. I mean, I guess I am getting to them. Not like I've got 4% aggregate ownership going to Colorado. So more than the one that they're getting, which I don't mind. Like if I'm going to not play all that much Urias, I might as well get a little bit more Colorado. So it is functioning the way that I would like it to. It's not exactly like it's a lot of just one-off Rockies just showing up in lineups. I should mention once again that I am not actively stacking, still continuing that experiment that I've been doing per a discussion with Adam from a couple weeks ago.
How's it been going so far?
Nothing's happened where I see it like just hemorrhaging anything, but it's been just your standard issue results. Nothing interesting, nothing like I had one good slate that's basically covered everything for baseball. So standard issue stuff. No wild negative so far. Took me a little bit to get like fantasy cruncher settings dialed in for a completely different play style, getting the idea of like how to generate lineups best when they can generate themselves much higher than they normally can. So it took me a little while to not just start like jamming people in uncontrollably, or for like the first 3 days that I did it, I had everybody at like 7%. I basically just had every single hitter clean across the board, full on random. And that felt a bit too aggressive.
Yeah, because I do think if you are, and I'd have to watch some of your videos. It's so hard to watch what other people do because we all have to put out all of our own content.
There's no time.
Yeah, there's not enough time. And then also I have to plan other content as well. So everything becomes a time sink. But I also think you don't have to think too much about some of the individual ownerships in that scenario. Would that be right?
No.
Because it's like who's playing these combinations anyway.
So I'm setting leverage in Fantasy Cruncher based on my sim and our ownership, and setting a minimum leverage for the hitters that show up in the lineup so that I'm not just getting chalk across the board, but it's still a lot. Like I still have 10% aggregate ownership to the Dodgers, still making its way through, but like the White Sox didn't have that same ability. And I'm still getting some stacks. Like I have one 4-man Padres stack that just showed up, one 4-man Braves stack that showed up. I've got 28 3-mans across 150 lineups, assorted across the board. Braves and Dodgers and Padres are all there. I get to infinite 2-mans. There are 208 total 2-man stacks that show up across those 150 lineups. So there's more stacking just by default than I would have ever expected there to be. But you just end up with like this wild sea of one-offs. Let's see. What's my top lineup?
Oh, thank you for talking. It gave me just enough time to change my single entry lineup from a Brave stack to a Blue Jays stack.
Nice. Happy to help out.
There we go.
Happy to help out. So my number one ranked lineup is a 2-man Blue Jays stack, singles across the board after that. Minaya Urias. It's a Kirk Guerrero combo. So I'm happy there. Luis Arias, Justin Turner, Kim, Lou Bob, Riley Green, and Richard Palacios. So, that was the lineup that showed up. Of the 1,500 lineups that I crunched, that one showed up in the top 1% of my sim more frequently than any other lineup combination that I had. 29 times in 1,500 sims. It's not a lot, man. It's crazy. Like, of the 1,500 lineups that I generated today, every single one of them was a top 1% lineup at least once.
If you have all of the 1% lineups today, that'd be a pretty good situation.
It would be nice. The worst showing lineup showed up in showed up in the top 1% 4 times, which is awful. But at the same time, like, that's how crazy baseball is, that any lineup can work its way into being like a viable baseball lineup. Like, it is, even the worst lineup that I had projected, like 60 points off of my optimal, still can show up in the top 1% of a contest. Baseball is weird like that, because that's not happening in basketball.
No, speaking of which, so we've gotten a lock. We're about to leave. Real quick, I want to answer from you. Durant, Kyrie, where do each of them get traded to?
I don't think there's an appropriate answer. I don't think there's a chance in hell that Kyrie is anywhere other than New York, other than LA at this point. It just seems like the very obvious, easy answer that he's just going to end up on the Lakers. Where Durant ends up at this point, I don't know. I think I saw a picture of a Nets plane in Phoenix today. I don't really know how to look into that. Seems like Phoenix is the most likely scenario. I don't totally know why Phoenix wants to do that, but I feel like you could probably just get a better return for Ayton without fucking around here and trading your whole draft away. Do you have a lean?
Yes. Kyrie, the Lakers one doesn't make sense to me. Unless, it doesn't make sense to me from a basketball standpoint, where not only are the Nets going to be flipping Kyrie for Westbrook, who are both expiring contracts, but the Lakers are making additional demands at this point too. Or like, include Seth Curry. I'm like, what leverage do you have? We're like, all right, we want more than just Kyrie. But from a basketball standpoint, it doesn't really make that much sense to me. But apparently, no other teams have interest in Kyrie Irving. So if that's the case, then I just guess he kind of ends up in Los Angeles by default. My gut feeling is somebody else steps in. I just don't know who that is going to be. So maybe it just ends up being the Lakers. They get that deal done. For Durant, I think he lands in Toronto, similar to Kawhi Leonard. We've seen the Raptors make this trade before, so I wouldn't be shocked if they go and do it again.
I'd love to see it, especially if I'm not the biggest Scotty Barnes guy. So I like the idea of him being like the guy that you trade to Brooklyn, which is even more interesting because like he and Ben Simmons simultaneously like are the same person but don't fit together at all on a basketball court.
It's the worst fit of all time.
Yeah. So I'm very pro like turning him and other assets into, if you can, into Kevin Durant, because obviously they'd be really good. And like KD's just gonna be able to show up, work. Everybody's there is just like gonna do their normal shit.
And one other thing about the Kyrie trade, why if you ask me to bet on a team he lands on, I would say the Lakers. But here's why I don't think it's quite the lock a lot of other people think it seems to be, is I just don't think it's a good move for the Nets. I don't think they're extracting that much value out of Kyrie. We saw them willing to sit Kyrie out for nearly the entirety of last season. Like, why is there all of a sudden an urgency to do something with Kyrie? Like, I think that they would be cool if they think they could get a better offer. We've seen the Nets sit on Kyrie and hold him out before, and that was when they were trying to compete. They're not even trying to compete this year at this point. So why not just hold on Kyrie and say, cool, you don't want to play? Stay at home. We did this with you last year and just wait until a better offer comes.
What if he's not playing and sitting at home and no offer comes and then you lose him for nothing? Like I'd be trying to do anything to get an unprotected Lakers pick in 2020, whatever the hell, because it's going to be good.
Yeah. Well, apparently that's not what wasn't the offer a protected pick in 2027 though?
They have their 27 and 29 that they can trade. They're not, the way the trades are going right now, they don't have the opportunity to trade anything other than an unprotected 27. If they want to try to put protections on 29, I think that makes sense. But we can't watch Minnesota trade all of these unprotecteds and Atlanta trade all of these unprotecteds. And then the Lakers be like, you know what? This one's lottery protected. That's the whole point of it, is the opposite.
Yeah. Unless there's literally the scenario where the Nets have nowhere else to trade Kyrie to.
So he's just going to end up in the Lakers. We got the Jays lineup. I'll deal with that later.
Yeah, and
sure Bobachet's not in it.
Moreno's not in the lineup, so I'll have to change that. But or else, yeah, we got the big guys are in there that we care about.
Well, that'll do it, folks. Another one in the books. Go enjoy the rest of your 4th of July holiday. Good luck to everybody that's playing tonight. Back to normal for everything starting tomorrow. Greg, go have some fun. Mike, go have some fun. Go have some fun. We're out of here. Peace. Stokastic.com is the best.